This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate fourth and final part of What If Naruto Was Trained by His Future Self. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Sat on a tree branch reading Icha Icha, Kakashi ordered Sakura, "Your mission today is to henge into Naruto, buy clothes and equipment for our team, buy groceries and buy dango for the team. Clear?" The girl with pink hair scowled down from the floor at Kakashi. Behind Sasuke, a temporary team member named Shikamaru, was engaged in a game of shogi on the ground. Why? Sakura had a red vest on underneath her Chunin uniform. Her hair was the same length as it had been in the academy, but she wore it in a knot that resembled Anko's. Kakashi answered, flipping a page in his favorite book, with a flippant, "Team bonding." Chunin, who had just been promoted, didn't seem too happy. "Naruto's not in our team anymore, remember? Hell, he hasn't been in Konoha for months." With a steady gaze, the copy ninja stared at the pinkhead. Ever since Jiraiya had briefed him about Akatsuki, Kakashi had returned to intense training, telling Sakura to perform your duty. He now had more free time because all of his subordinates were Chunin. "Ku. Okay," she gave a hand seal, "henge." Kakashi answered quite quickly, "Ah, close, but it seems you've forgotten something." With a disappointed shake of his head, Sasuke continued to stare at the Naruto transformation. "You're a true idiot for forgetting something so obvious." The girl actually gave the Uchiha a glare. What? Sakura had changed from being an ardent fangirl to something less. All Shikamaru could think about was the shogi match, and he was occupied with it. "What did I forget?" The copy. Ninja turned over a new page. Since his Sharingan actually remembered every word on every page, he wasn't really reading. The bliss of being a Sharingan. The whiskers. "Sakura. It seems you don't really know your teammates. How rude." Sakura moaned as she cast aside her henge and repeated the performance, adding whiskers this time. The girl who had changed into Naruto asked, "How's this?" Sasuke gave thought to the Naruto who was standing beside him. "Yeah, that's better. I really get the feeling I want to hit you in the face now. Definitely better." "That's rude," Naruto said, gesturing to Sasuke, but Sasuke ignored him right away. The lone girl in the clearing sighed and turned to face the town. As soon as Sakura was out of sight, Sasuke said, "So you're finally setting her straight, Kakashi? It's about time." He winced as one of his prized pieces on the shugi board was taken by Shikamaru. Whoa. Kakashi landed on the ground in front of Sasuke and Shikamaru, saying, "You don't know how right you are, Sasuke. Since Shikamaru will win in 2 steps anyway, let's start with the morning exercises." Sasuke gave Kakashi and Shikamaru a fierce look. He was never fond of defeat. "Already?" Shikamaru moaned, giving the impression that getting up from his seat required all of the force in the world. Futon, a pair of yells coincided, but nothing transpired. With his arms crossed, Jiraiya was staring down the 2 wind users. "Pathetic. And you guys think you're Junin material? I'm surprised one of you is even Chunin. How about I knock you down, Jiraiya?" With a simple smile, the toad hermit stepped away from the blonde who threw a kunai and said, "Please, I've got years of experience Ove. See? I had my eyes closed, even." Naruto gave a huff. "Che, can you do collaboration jutsu? I can't picture seeing you and Tsunade or Orochimaru doing any of this." Tamari, who was standing at the far end of the clearing, had to agree. Although she was not personally acquainted with the other 2 Sannin, she was aware of them. "Add to the fact you seem just as clumsy as Naruto." "Hey," came from 2 enraged voices. "Whatever, let's try this again." "Naruto, you taught Tamari your Nikuatsu, right? Perform it together. Target each other and cancel each other's jutsu out. The both of you will have to read just how much chakra the other is using." Jiraiya gave him the order. "Tamari, you perform it first. Naruto, you will adjust to her technique, don't overpower it and don't be overpowered by it. This is important, you'll learn how to read how much chakra is being used by your opponent." Fuuten, Nikuatsu, Fuuten, Nikuatsu. Jiraiya quickly changed his mind after seeing how damaging the method was. As it was, Tamari anticipated that Naruto would overdo his chakra in his jutsu. After all, she was familiar with her captain's lack of awareness. When their jutsu collided, an orb made of wind chakra was launched toward Tamari. Jiraiya's gaze grew wide. It resembles a flying Rasengan. The orb struck a tree behind Tamari, who leapt away. The 3 gazed in amazement at the devastation as the sphere grew larger and removed 4 trees, chopping them into tiny bits of nothing. Naruto exclaimed, "So, with 4 different pressure directions. You create something like that, huh? With excitement. It doesn't require as much chakra, but it is weaker than the standard Rasen Shuriken. As he observed the outcomes, Jiraiya muttered, interesting combo jutsu. It seems like the wind chakra acts like little razor blades. He'd gone through every report that had been sent to him regarding the team he was going with. His abilities had landed him with them, so he wasn't shocked, but they weren't what he'd thought they would be. To the best of his knowledge, Jinchuriki were consistently erratic and easily enraged. The two he was with were completely different. He was only with half the team at the moment. The other half had been taken by Jiraiya for training. He was composing a report for the Hokage, while the others were occupied with training and fighting. He had been spending a good deal of time with Jiraiya and his group. Tenzo gave a slight irritated pat to the back of his head. He was an expert at deduction, but neither Naruto nor Gaara ever truly demonstrated anything. After all, the majority of the jutsu he had written down were already known prior to his assigned mission. Thanks to Anko, he learned about Cage Henge from Naruto. He watched as Gaara shook his head in amusement as Dosu and Kankuro argued about an unfair match. This was an extremely dangerous and skilled team. He was initially dubious when Jiraiya informed him that this team's goal was to defeat S-ranked Nuke.Nin, but after spending months with them, he came to believe they could succeed. As he read the mission progressions, Naruto asked, skeptically, they think they're going to have a hard time there? Land of Snow, huh? I've never been there, is it close to the Land of Iron? Jiraiya gave his godson a rolling look. Did you forget? Back when we were in the Land of Iron, I wanted to show you the abandoned lands of snow. Remember what we saw? People. So I investigated and found out there are actually shinobi living there. I am Konoha's #1 information gatherer, you know. But could Kakashi-sensei really have trouble with snow shinobi? Well, it doesn't really matter since it sounds like fun. When are they leaving for the mission? Naruto exclaimed with enthusiasm. You're the captain of your team, but ultimately, I am the one who's in charge of this Akatsuki business, you know. The Toad Hermit murmured. While Gaara and Tayuya went out to buy dinner for everyone, Tamari was occupied with bothering Yamato about a fight. Right now, they were in the domains of Wave. Because Naruto enjoyed visiting Wave so much, he and Jiraiya purchased an entire apartment building there. Kakashi's team hasn't even been given the mission yet. Dosu added his 2 cents and approached the three of them, saying, I'll assume not our entire team needs to be dispatched for this. His body was half metallized, after all. Knowing Naruto, he wants to go because it's his old team. I particularly don't feel like going to Yukigakure. I am at a disadvantage because of the cold. The blonde captain gave the bandaged Nin a sneer. You're always at a disadvantage, Dosu. The sound technician just shrugged. Best to think you're at a disadvantage than an advantage. Overestimating oneself will do none any good, except the opponent. As he maneuvered 3 male puppets into a sort of wrestling match with one another, Kankuro was smiling to himself. He had made his puppets so strong in the time they left Konoha that they could even withstand the average food and jutsu Tamari threw at them. I don't know, a little overconfidence doesn't hurt. Insecurity can be a major gap in your defense. When she broke his puppets, he detested it. Shame, accident. Naruto asked, Kankuro, please try not to break shit in the living room. You sound like Tamari. The blonde decided to brush the comment aside. The 2 Jinchuriki on the team decided that they should spend as little time apart as possible. Who wants to go? If I'm going, then Gaara's going too. Even Akatsuki should find it too difficult to take on 2 Jinchuriki. Jiraiya smiled and said, I'm staying here with the girls. He disregarded Naruto's complaints that he only wanted to be a pervert, saying, take Dosu and Kankuro with you. I think I've expressed my viewpoint already. Dosu, typical of him, shot back with seriousness. I am a liability in the Land of Snow. The tall toad summoner countered, actually, going there might make you stronger. Who knows when you'll have to fight an opponent who knows ice techniques. The metallic shinobi deadpanned, I think they are almost extinct. If they exist at all, they would be in the Land of Snow. A ticket to ice torture. I think I shall pass. Naruto grinned and thought of a way to persuade Zabuza and Haku to accompany him to the Land of Snow. Actually, I have a friend who knows ice jutsu. Perhaps I should ask him to accompany us on this mission. That could prove entertaining. Since he had saved them, he had not spoken to the pair. Yeah, I think I'll go and see how they're doing. With a moan, Jiraiya watched as his pupil vanished without even saying goodbye. Impulsive little bastard. Your plan is insane. Even if you and this bozo do know Fuinjutsu a bit, I'm sure the situation will backfire. Taking on a Biju isn't my favorite thing to do these days. You speak of saving your friend, but it's impossible. If he died, then he had a chance of revival thanks to the Biju. But that chance is almost zero, because a Biju would obviously choose freedom over healing his host. He grumbled. Why do you think he's still in there? The mad swordsman called Ao, a former Kiri elite Junin, a bozo. Ao seemed a little offended by this, but she remained silent. In front of his leader, he needed to act and behave professionally. We never defeated Yagura, he just went insane and went berserk. The three tails rampaged and killed a few, but only those who attacked it. He's still roaming free around Kirigakure. Mei knew that Zabuza wasn't convinced. Listen, we've managed to save Amiyuri and Kushimaru, but the others have fallen. Shaojuoro is a newly appointed swordsman. By you. Zabuza interrupted her. You've got skills, but you don't deserve to appoint swordsmen just like that. You might be the Mizukage now, but even the Mizukage doesn't decide on swordsmen. Swordsmen are chosen by swordsmen and there is only one way. Hoshigaki Kisame is a perfect example on how a swordsman is born. Death and murder choose us. Fubuki's skill had grown dull, which is a true embarrassment, as his sword was probably the strongest of all our swords. Zabuza's front row companion squinted at him. That may be true, but Chaojuoro can wield the sword perfectly. With contempt, Zabuza glanced at the unsure boy standing behind Chirumi Mei. The Haramekure can be a very powerful sword. It depends on the user's will and strength. Mangetsu was true master with it. I don't see you reaching that level, boy. Mei glared at him, saying, Enough, Zabuza. Spare me the scare tactics. The sword fell in my possession and I gave it to him. It belonged to me, so now it belongs to him. I believe in the boy and I want you to train him. Shay. Zabuza averted his gaze. This little rescue party you got going doesn't leave me impressed, Mei. The Sanbi will rip all of you to shreds. Zabuza scowled as Mei and the other shinobi in the area tensed up, pulling out their weapons and gathering chakra. What, did I upset you? Ah, Zabuza. Sama. Hearing Haku, he spun around, and to his surprise, Naruto was standing next to him. But his surprise passed quickly, and he smiled toothily. Hey, perhaps you're getting lucky now, Mei. Still wearing her Naruto disguise, Sakura scowled to herself as she tried a different clothing store. Why am I always being rejected by everyone? She asked herself. But despite all the looks she received, she felt sick to her stomach as she strolled down the streets. Why are people so upset with me? Even before he left Konoha, Naruto hadn't played any practical jokes. She gave everyone the cold shoulder in return, but she was sad about it. Why are people so, She entered the shinobi clothing store that was next. The woman's smile at her greeting changed to a snide smirk. Welcome to. Oh, it's you. We don't sell your size here, ugly little shit. Get out. Sakura's fists clenched as her eyes nearly fell out of her head at the open insult. She was furious and could hardly contain herself. What? Did you say? I can't. Hurt. Civilians. Sakura was left standing in the entrance as the store owner turned away and said, Get out. You're not welcome here. Sakura turned around and walked toward the next store, saying, The nerve. Is this the situation that Naruto faced? Shanaru, I would prank these people too. She looked away and saw a grocery store. Maybe clothes stores are just plain off limits for Naruto. As Naruto got closer, a middle-aged man was outside the store hanging up signs for sale. He looked around and waved his hands as Naruto walked toward him. He cried, Stay away, you'll make my goods rot. Sakura froze, certain now that everyone in Konoha just detested Naruto for being alive. All of them. Why? Why are you transformed into Naruto, Sakura? If you want to imitate him, you shouldn't wear so much of your perfume. Sakura spun to face Kiba, but she didn't stop her metamorphosis. Kiba. With Akamaru by his side as usual, the dog-like boy saw the scared look on Naruto's face. What's wrong? It's really weird seeing Naruto with this expression, you know. At that moment, Sakura realized something. Naruto is always so joyful and upbeat. He's so gregarious and spirited. If everyone despises him, how is he able to be like that? Why is he so hated by everyone? Why are you hanged into him, anyway? You should know better, you'll just feel bad. Kiba grumbled. Hell, it even makes me feel bad. Why? Why does everyone? I don't know. Kiba cut off Sakura brutally, clearly anticipating her question and appearing to blame himself. I don't know, but I do know I was the same. I realized a long time ago that something's seriously wrong with how everyone's treating him here. You knew? Let's go grab some ramen, Sakura, Kiba said with a confused smile on his face, resembling a bruised puppy. I want to ask you something as well. Zabuza wasn't entirely sure, as he could still clearly recall the killing of the Kiri Enbu several months prior, but for some reason, he thought Naruto could kill everyone in this room. Naruto. What are you doing here? Zabuza asked. A child this young still amazes me with that killing intent back then. Zabuza had instantly straightened his body, and Mei saw it. Why is Zabuza acting so tense, this boy? At the suddenly apparent blonde boy, she squinted her eyes. How did he get in here? He wasn't summoned, and you can't use Shunshin to get into this building. She suddenly realized something inside and thought of the boy. It was this same boy who, during their Chunin exams, had advised her to return to Kirigakure after the attack on Kumogakure. But she couldn't remember his name. Al muttered, Terumi. Sama. What do we do? I can't get a read on him, something's blocking my Byakugan. He can obstruct the Byakugan's vision, which is interesting. Mei gave a standing motion with her hands. She peered at Zabuza's back and said, it appears he isn't hostile, as Haku doesn't seem to be afraid of him. But he is very wary. He is comparable to Peculiar in that regard. Naruto replied nonchalantly, glancing around the room carelessly. I'm going to the land of snow. My team might run into a few shinobi able to use Hayao and ninjutsu. Is he in the midst of a meeting? Perhaps? I was unaware that Zabuza had a larger team working for him. Or does Zabuza have a job for these folks? The blonde refrained from using senjutsu to gauge the strength of everyone present. How about it? Feel like cutting some shinobi up? He asked, squinting at the tiny office they were in. Zabuza squinted as he considered something. Land of snow? Really, that looks like a lot of fun. Just my kind of battle, he said, reflecting on the rebel group he was facing and how much he wanted Kirigakure to return to its former state. Naruto could be useful here as well. Zabuza muttered, it doesn't sound like you really need me there. Why? Amusement sparkled in Naruto's eyes. You two are my comrades and I don't really know you that well yet. Snow might be fun. But it seems like the two of you are busy here. With a quick glance over his shoulder, Zabuza gave Mei a start, revealing uncertainty on the demon of the mist's countenance. We're going hunting. You interested in Biju? Naruto appeared to be intrigued. Biju? According to my resources, didn't Kiri have the Sanbi? Is it free? He gave Mei another backhand glare, saying, we don't know for sure. The Jinchuriki might still be alive, but I say that's false hope. He gave Naruto a serious glance and said, we're going to find out. I'm going to participate, definitely. I could use your help. Mei's eyes went narrower. Although she was in charge of this operation and felt compelled to speak up, it appeared that Zabuza had a lot of faith in the boy. Later, when this boy was older, they will have to talk about this. Sure. I'll help out. You'll have to brief me completely, though, and I'm sure my team can help out too. Jiraiya's got nothing to do either, I'm sure. He appeared to be thinking deeply. But my former team's going to depart from Konoha any day now. How about you help me out first, and then I'll help you out? Jiraiya? Like one of the fabled Sannin, perhaps? Mei thought, her hands starting to perspire a little. Who is this boy? He smiled. Haku, let's go have some fun in Yukigakure. We might be able to get things our way with Naruto on our side. As you wish, Zabuza. Sama. Mei's voice interrupted. Wait. She glared at Zabuza and Naruto, saying, I don't remember allowing you to recruit people out of the blue, Zabuza. I won't allow things so easily. Who are you, Konoha shinobi? Sakura and Kiba were sharing a bowl of ramen. If Sakura hadn't changed back into herself, people might have reacted strangely to Ichiraku ramen. I've been learning things about Naruto since the team and I were kind of talking about him a few months ago, Akamaru said as he lay on the ground outside the ramen stand and enjoyed himself. Sakura appeared insulted to see that Kiba was still lacking in manners. Is it really appropriate to converse while eating ramen? As a Chunin, Kiba was still a bitch of a child. She had the same vision of Naruto. Hey, you're his teammate and you just realized today, right? He asked, obligingly disregarding the pink woman's horrified expression. I'm not stupid, Kiba. Of course I knew Naruto wasn't really liked by many, but I just always thought it was because of the pranks. He gave her a frustrated glance and then shook his head and sighed. You know, I never really got along with that blonde dumbass, but I always remember my mom saying he's got it tough. Tougher than all of us. I never really understood why she said those things. Sakura scowled and then gave a snort. Her eyes widened. Really? My mom always said to stay away from that nuisance. She always called him a little monster. I'm not surprised. Inuzuka have advanced sense of smell, but our hearing's not exactly average either. Kiba was somewhat boastful. I hear the villagers talking smack every now and then, but it took me a while to realize they were talking about him. They don't call him by his name, it's always brat, disgrace, mistake, monster, or demon brat. His face became more serious. Akamaru can smell the amount of chakra a person has, or just about. He was never really able to smell how much Naruto had in class during our academy days. And when he became genin he wore that special outfit of his. Akamaru told me couldn't smell his chakra, but he could smell Naruto's scent. He sighed. Hell, anyone can smell the ramen on that guy. The canine looking boy appeared to think about something for a while. I think something was blocking it, because Akamaru could only smell a little chakra around the guy. But during those Chunin exams where he kicked Sasuke's ass, even I could tell he has a shitload of chakra. Why are you bringing this up? It just bothers me. That guy was the dead last, and then suddenly he beats Sasuke into the ground as if it's nothing. Even I can't do what he did against Sasuke. That means he's stronger than I am. He came to our sensei for help a long time ago, and even then she confirmed that Naruto could be talented. He grumbled. I never had anything against the guy, but when Shino and I became Chunin and Kurenai took on another student, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Especially since Kurenai seems to regret not helping Naruto back then. Sakura asked, politely continuing to eat her ramen. Well, why didn't she? She didn't have the time, but I'm sure Naruto thought Kurenai sensei was just like everyone else, that she hated his guts like everyone else. He struck the counter with his fist. She isn't like that. After consuming her entire bowl, Sakura noticed Kiba had ceased eating. Kiba, she said, a little taken aback to see the Inuzuka truly unhappy. Look, I know I'm reading too much into this, but I just care about our team, Kurenai. Sensei isn't shallow like that. Back when he was still in Konoha, you should have seen how Naruto acted against our team, like we were his enemy. We're not. Kiba tightened his fists. I'll show that prick we don't hate him. You really care, huh? Kiba's eyes grew gentler. Imagine. He resumed his meal. He said, I remember, you know? When I realized how much everyone hated him, leaving out the information that Shino was the one who had made that realization. The teachers at the academy hated him. When I think about it, maybe it was the teacher's fault he was the dead last. They never really paid any attention to him and always gave him detention, even when he didn't do anything wrong. I remember that the entire class just laughed at him, and everyone else hated him, too. You felt it too when you were transformed into him. Imagine. Sakura put down her chopsticks and sighed. He spat angrily. That was how he was treated all his life. He gritted his teeth in sympathy, by idiots hating him for whatever reason. I know Naruto. He's not a bad guy. He's always been alone, never had parents or friends. He balled his fists and said, I don't want to be seen as someone who also hated him. He's a good guy. A good guy. I cannot imagine how tough he's had it. Sakura stammered, realizing that Naruto had it harder than everyone else despite having never had anyone else. Kiba's eyes became icy. You were his team, but you guys treated him badly too, right? I know Sasuke did. Sakura swallowed her humiliation. Although Kakashi Sensei was kind to him, I didn't really see him as a friend either. She was reflecting on the formation of Team 7. Uncertain, she said, yeah. I think Kakashi Sensei was nice to him. The Inuzuka complained, this is what I mean. I hate it. Deep down, I'm sure Naruto thinks we all hate him just like all the others. You should have seen the way he acted towards our team back then. That's why he gets along so well with those guys from Suna, I bet. He knows they don't hate him. But I think he thinks everyone in Konoha hates him. Maybe that's why he wants to be Hokage so much, so no one can hate him anymore. We'll let him know how we feel when he returns, Sakura scowled, not really thinking Naruto would assume she detested him. However, considering how she had initially handled Naruto, it might not have been all that off. She remembered how she had introduced herself to Team 7 the first time, and she blinked. What I dislike is, Naruto. Naruto looked at the woman in front of him and said, you're not a Konoha shinobi and I don't know you. Haku and Zabuza weren't sure how to respond to this. I don't have to answer your questions. Be that as it may, you're not in Konoha now. You're in Kirigakure now and I am the Mizukage. Appearing like this in my office could be seen as an act of aggression. I could have you killed here and I would be well within my rights. Konoha won't even be able to go at war for that. She allowed it to sink in before continuing. Mei replied, matching Naruto's scowl, you've already agreed to help Zabuza, haven't you? Zabuza works for me. Zabuza opened his mouth to protest, then stopped. It was true, in a sense. and maybe it would function. He scowled at Mei and said, I trust Zabuza and I trust Haku. That doesn't mean I trust whoever they work for. They were on the run for Kiri-oi.nin when I met them, and they've worked for scum like Gato because it couldn't be helped. Who's to say you're not the same as that little midget? Zabuza stepped in and said, Naruto, they were also Nuke.nin from Kiri. Kirigakure is now being run differently. Oi.nin are no longer after me. The blonde questioned the demon of the mist, you trust them? After a moment, Zabuza turned to face Mei and her two guards and grinned, yeah, I do. Naruto continued to scowl at them. All those not aligned with Konoha were viewed as enemies by him, with the exception of those individuals he had identified as potential allies. He sighed and crossed his arms. All right. Ask what you want, but I won't answer everything. Feel lucky I trust Zabuza and Haku. Feel fortunate. Who does this boy think he is, Shiki? Mei thought, a little frustrated. Who are you? Uzumaki Naruto. Mei gave a tongue. Click. Uzumaki? She laughed hysterically. That extinct clan? It was quickly countered, not as extinct as you think. Mei believed the name to be fictitious. Fine, whatever. Since Zabuza now considered Naruto to be a sort of comrade, he also gave the name some more thought. Is it possible that he is an actual Uzumaki? He certainly doesn't appear to be one. However, he is skilled in Fuinjutsu. He studied the blonde with interest. That might get pretty interesting, he said, quickly returning the focus to the discussion. This Jiraiya you spoke of, is he? Yeah, one of the legendary Sannin, blah blah, just like Tsunade. Mei found it difficult to accept being interrupted, and Orochimaru. Naruto smiled, yeah, that guy too, but he's dead, so who are you? She introduced herself as Terumi Mei, the Godem Mizukage. The previous comment still annoyed her, in a way. You're not the only one not trusting people. I don't trust you either, Konoha.nin. You are the one who should feel lucky I trust Zabuza. Zabuza, meantime, gave them both a fierce look. It must be really nice for these guys to trust me. Naruto laughed. He expressed his doubt, saying, I guess so. You think you can take down a Biju? With how many are you? Tell me your plan. You're by yourself, in enemy territory, demanding things? I think you've been hit in the head a few times too many, boy. Who's to say you're not waiting to infiltrate Kirigakure? Mei. Zabuza interrupted the conversation when he attempted to stop Naruto. Are you crazy? Zabuza and Haku are my friends. I will help them with anything. Mei was not easily persuaded. You do realize we can see you as a threat and deal with you easily here. Kiri and Konoha are not allies. You are in enemy territory and we are justified to deal with you like we deal with threats. You'd better stop playing games and be serious, child. Naruto's eyes went blank. Deal with me, easily? Zabuza cut Naruto off before he could lose his cool, saying, Mei. He's okay. He's with us, he is no threat. Or Mei, to be more precise. With a sigh, Mei turned back to Naruto from Zabuza. It's impossible. He's a Konoha.nin, he's not allowed to act without permission of the Hokage. If you really want to help your friends, I suggest you take the request to your Hokage, boy. She thought about him. I've sent dozens of requests to several shinobi nations back when Kiri was still being ruled by the previous Mizukage. I've never received any answer. I trust things will stay that way. Go talk to your Hokage and see if I am right or not. Naruto gave a shrug. The man turned to his two friends and said, the old man? I'll see what I can do. I'll be back in a day or two, okay? We're still finishing things somewhere else. Naruto then vanished as quickly as he had appeared. Ao murmured, it's exactly the same as before, he simply vanished? Mei's eyes narrowed for a moment upon hearing Ao murmur. Zabuza, who was that boy? Zabuza muttered more to himself than Mei, HN. If I am considered the demon of the mist, he can be considered the demon of Konoha, I suppose. Be careful, Mei. He eradicated 2 entire platoons of Kiri. And in a matter of seconds. Before you were Mizukage, of course. It's best to deal with him as you deal with me. Don't piss us off. Mei could hardly believe Zabuza was comparable to a child like that. How strong is he, really? In a casual reply, Jiraiya told Yamato, he's strong. Jiraiya was not going to give this Anbu member any information about Naruto. I don't know exactly either, but he's Junin material, definitely. He had the right to keep Naruto's secrets. Yamato let out a sigh. You spar with him, right? Perhaps I should spar with him, too. He knows the Hiraishin, Tenzo. I don't know if you noticed, but he doesn't like to flaunt his abilities. He'll just flash away from you. The temporary Junin blurted out, maybe I'll ambush him disguised as a foreign nin. That might prove interesting. While Yamato recalled Anko's account of her fight with Naruto, the two higher-ranked Konoha.nin carried on crossing the Great Bridge of Naruto. Retrograde holding out both arms, Naruto asked, so how do we do this? No rules. The purple-haired one gave a nod. No rules, all out. Alright. When do we start? Anko hurried forward, preparing a kunai to either stab or throw, depending on Naruto's next move. Now. With a head tilt, the blonde just leapt backward at the same speed that Anko was going forward. Naruto easily avoided Anko's thrown kunai by slightly shifting his upper body to the right. She made herself appear above him with shunshin, then kicked down with an axe to hit his head. Naruto wanted to give her a sideways knee and swung around during her attack. The Junin used her left upper arm to push Naruto's knee away before punching him in the face. Anko's maneuver to move Naruto's knee aside made it simpler for him to avoid Anko's punch by simply continuing the path that Anko had started. He did hand seals very fast. Fuuten, Jinpu no Yugeki. Anko swiftly spun around to get away from Naruto and felt gusts of wind blow past her. She was about to get closer to Naruto when she took a wind blast to the back and then another one to the front, which sent her flying forward and into his right fist. However, she took hold of his fist and drew the blonde in her direction. She gave the blonde a headbutt to the forehead and became furious when the blonde exhaled. Kage Bunshin. She muttered, oblivious to the two blasts of wind that were burning her back. Bastard was a clone the entire time. And he got the first hit in, even. It's annoying, right? When used small like that, food and ninjutsu can be tricky and undetectable by vision. It doesn't really pack a wallop, but every little thing counts in a battle. She turned her body and was on him in an instant. Like before, they traded punches and kicks, but Anko had an unexpected realization. Naruto was matching her unique snake taijutsu. Although she occasionally moved more quickly and even managed to get past his defenses, her hits on him were ineffective because it appeared that she was only taking on shadow clones. She popped one, and another materialized in the same location at once. About 20 snakes emerged from Anko's right sleeve, yelling, Sene Jashu. Naruto leapt back, fighting a mental battle with himself to decide whether or not to allow Kyuubi's chakra to burn those bothersome snakes away. Instead, he just moved behind Anko and prepared a jutsu. Fuuten. Fujin no Mei. She was familiar with the jutsu and knew how to dodge the wind sickles that were aimed at her. Taking her snakes out of her mouth, she ducked low, turning to face Naruto. Then she bolted forward, determined to attack the blonde while he was focused on doing the jutsu, slipping between the attacks. But as she dashed, a second Naruto materialized to her left, calling forth a jutsu. Fuuten, Reppuken. She sidestepped and another Naruto with a jutsu materialized. Fuuten, Renkuden. Anko thought to herself in frustration, shit, this guy can really spam clones, and dodged once more. And, if he's here at all, I have no idea which one is the real one. Anko called out, Kaden, Ryuka no Jutsu, and directed the fire dragon attack towards every wind jutsu practiced, setting off a tremendous firestorm. Though she had hoped that this would take care of the shadow clones, they had all been wise enough to back off. With the fire and smoke gone and 3 Narutos staring at her, Anko praised her, saying, it's good to see you don't just throw your Kage Bunshin at your enemy, kid. Let me guess, the real one isn't any of you. Each of them shrugged. One said, hey, that's for you to find out. Another smiled, obviously taunting, you're a Junin, right? I expected more. The third argued with the second, saying, hey, I'm sure she's not going all out. Then he thought rather dryly of Anko. At least I hope not. She shunned behind all 3 of them at nearly the same moment, and wasn't shocked to see them all get dispelled. He's pretty good. I didn't expect him to fight so cleverly with Bunshin. Your Kage Bunshin won't get the job done, brat. Only the real you might get shit done. Naruto materialized in front of her and said, your taijutsu is pretty annoying. I'm the real one. I won't use clones anymore. Instead, I'll use Fuinjutsu to bring you down. She licked her lips in anticipation as Naruto unwrapped scrolls around his entire body, saying, who? I like a man who's confident. I've never really fought a Fuinjutsu user before. As his 2 scrolls slammed and sliced into the earth, Naruto declared with confidence, you're going to regret it. Rapidly falling symbols from the scrolls were beyond Anko's comprehension. It didn't matter, though, because she was going to prove to this boy how unfit he truly was. But after taking just one step, she understood how hazardous Naruto could be. She was able to dodge the explosion with enough speed, but as she prepared to land once more, she noticed that the ground gave way completely. He made a hole exactly like that. She used wires to toss a kunai at a tree and make her way to safety. However, the same scrolls that Naruto had just sent into the ground soon surrounded the tree. Alright, shish. T. What happens next? She was hit by a dozen fireballs that shot out from the scrolls. Hosenka no Jutsu is that, and a scroll is the source of it? She was able to use Kawarimi, but wherever she fled, one of the two scrolls was constantly directing jutsu toward her. But what a weak fire jutsu. He must not have a fire affinity, she mused for a moment before coming up with a plan. He can use jutsu in those scrolls and activate them remotely. How? With a flick of a chakra. When she ventured a glance at Naruto, she noticed a red scroll whirling around him. It also occurred to her that this one was longer than the previous two. He is a great unknown. With jutsu flying all around me, I can't get close. Naruto cast a serious glance at the Junin who was dodging. She is intelligent and fast. She may even have quicker reflexes than I do. He had sent the red scroll into the ground in Enko's direction, and another scroll was buried beneath him in case the Junin approached him. A Doden and a Kaden scroll were the first two he had used and had since withdrawn. Doden. Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu, Doden. Doryu Dango, and Doden. Doroku Gaoshi were all included in the Doden 1. The trio of Kaden, Bakufu no Jutsu, Baisu Keiyu, and Hosenka no Jutsu were held by the Kaden 1. The short scrolls had to remain affixed to the bottoms of his shoes. His chakra had to be moving all the time. He wasn't using clones at the time, but he could use more scrolls with the use of Kage Bunshin. He had thus cut the Doden and Kaden scrolls off when he began using the red ones. Be careful, Anko.san, you might abruptly lose this spar. The red scroll was longer than the other two because it contained 4 jutsu, but because they were all Kachiyose, the jutsu were unique. 4 were set aside. 1 for himself, 1 for a hawk, 1 for a toad, and 1 for 6 explosive Kage Bunshin. Since they were all trap-based seals, disturbance was what set them off. Naruto's chakra was flowing through the scrolls, but if Anko touched one by mistake, the flow would be interrupted, which would trigger panic and subsequent activation. Subterranean, the red scroll was circling Anko. Naruto grinned, having virtually gained control of the ground. She would be sufficiently caught off guard for either Takariui or Gamaken to act, even if she did unintentionally trigger the summon seals for them. He prayed that she wouldn't unintentionally trigger the explosive Shadow Clone's seal. Knowing that the red scroll was hiding in the sand, Anko sat perched on a tree branch and thought to himself, maybe it wasn't smart to play this move. Beneath him, too, his defensive scroll was slithering. That one only contained 2 jutsu, but it was lengthy because it was meant to protect the user from all angles. It was a food and scroll that contained 2 moves. Gufu no Jutsu, which created a small tornado around him using a vicious cutting wind chakra, and Haisu no Jutsu, which was used for escape. Anko smiled and fingered a few kunai, saying, I noticed you haven't moved from your spot. Let's see why that is. Since he could always activate the scrolls on his own, Naruto laughed to himself. With chakra thus poured into his defensive food and scroll, the Gufu no Jutsu dispatched Anko's approaching weaponry with ease. Anko realized Naruto had a wind defense around him and unleashed several fire blasts towards him, saying, Kaden, Hosenka no Jutsu. However, in response to Anko's fire attack, Naruto coolly activated the Kyuka seal and merely absorbed the fire chakra. What the heck? Anko was unable to comprehend. This child had so many surprises in store. His confidence increased after he buried that red scroll beneath the earth. Is he immune to fire jutsu, and does he have some sort of food and ninjutsu protection surrounding him? She began to think about it. How else can I help? Giving up, Anko just laughed. Kachiyose no jutsu. The blonde was approached by 2 enormous snakes that tore through the earth, but she didn't seem scared. Rather, he directed some chakra toward the red scroll buried in the earth, and a hawk larger than both snakes emerged. As the hawk snatched up one of the snakes and took off, Anko's jaw fell open. Naruto had just finished a few hand seals when she had to jump off the other snake's head, where she was standing. Fuden. Fujin no Mei. Anko was furious to witness the dismemberment of her other snake. After her summon was destroyed, she fell to the ground a short distance from Naruto. At that moment, she noticed 6 Narutos circling her, and she knew right away that they were gathering chakra. Fuck, you're not serious. The explosion made Naruto wince. Man, my red scroll is useless now. The explosion, of course, did away with the scroll's utility. Though it appeared that Anko had utilized Kawarimi, she was not spared from that explosion. She was launched skyward by Naruto's defensive scrolls Jutsu Fuuden. Haisu no Jutsu the moment she emerged behind him with a kunai around his neck. He had to squint his eyes in order to see Anko in the air, but he saw her summon a larger snake than the previous 2 times she used Kachiyose. As Anko and her snake descended, Naruto noticed that his hawk summon, Takarui, had dropped the snake somewhere and was returning. "She'll land safe like that, don't have to use the air cushion technique," he said. "She's screwed, I can't really signal him from here." Anko had the same thought as Naruto's hawk moved quickly in her direction. Then, with an apologetic smile directed at Anko as well as the hawk, Naruto materialized atop the hawk's head. "Takarui, this is just a spar, let's go down. Help them, too." Anko sighed. She had misplaced this spar horribly. She looked at Naruto, who was sitting on the hawk's head, and said, "Man, I didn't even touch him. It makes sense that Hokage Sama gave me this mission, he knows some crazy shit." Finish the flashback. 3 subordinates were trailing behind a man with shoulder-length black hair who was wearing dark chakra armor as he moved through a train corridor. One of his subordinates announced, "We've arrived, Dodo. Sama, everything's ready." Dodo couldn't wait to show his newly made weapon to the meddling Konoha.nin guarding Koyuki as he opened the door to an impending massacre. "Ready the weapons, those fools are in sight." Roga gestured for one of the goons operating the machine on the train's side where they were all riding to begin rotating the apparatus that would shoot hundreds of spears at the enemy. Dodo laughed uncontrollably as he observed his weapon in action. "Fools, to dare stand in my way." Subsequently, the snow began to ascend towards the sky, shielding his adversaries from his weaponry. "What?" Mizore, Fubuki, and Roga all appeared taken aback. They gazed at it for some time before Dodo let out a loud cry. "You fools! Do something about that." And then a blonde child materialized in front of them, floating in midair and brandishing a massive, frightening-looking chakra shuriken. That is completely crazy. Chakra is so abundant. With his light blue hair pulled back in a long ponytail, Roga alerted his allies right away. "Spread out. That attack is too powerful." Moments before, Naruto shivered, realizing he was getting close to Kakashi's chakra signature. Damn, it's cold. He no longer needed to appear so close to the target because he could control his Hiraishin so perfectly. A train appeared to be coming from inside the mountain that he and his group were standing on, and they had appeared on a mountain with a view of a large clearing. When a large, enormous train emerged from the mountain, Jiraiya, Naruto, Gaara, Zabuza, Haku, and Tayuya all appeared intrigued. "Why the fuck did you bring me to this cold shithole? To see a fucking train?" she exclaimed, noting that although she and the others, maybe Jiraiya included, had never seen one before, it wasn't a compelling enough reason to be here. As the shinobi and other samurai near the train appeared to be getting ready, Tayuya scowled. Seems like whoever's on that train is an enemy to your team, Uzumaki." "Yeah, I noticed." Naruto was unsure of what to do when the train stopped in front of a large group of samurai and his former team. "Gaara," was his reaction when he saw how parts of the train opened up to reveal weapons. Jinchuriki, the redhead, knew exactly what to do. "The snow has made it heavier, but I can handle it." Kakashi, his group, and the samurai were fired at by the cannons that were loaded with spears, kunai, shuriken, and other weapons. All they could do was watch as hundreds of weapons were fired at them and as a huge wall of snow and sand rose to the sky to shield them. Sabaku no Tate. Given that Kakashi's clients were spared, Naruto sighed with relief. He had to ask his former Junin sensei because he didn't know much about the mission. "Nice, Gaara. Although, didn't you already have a technique called Sabaku no Tate?" Gaara gave one headshake. "You mean Suna no Tate, my automatic defense when the Gogyu Fuin is lifted. This is a new one, the Desert Shield." He sighed. Although Snow Desert Shield would perhaps be more appropriate here. Afterwards, they all utilized Shunshin to reach Kakashi's group. "I see," was Kakashi's greeting to them. Since he was unable to save every samurai in time, he was appreciative of whoever managed to save them. He could now see that Gaara was the one who had executed this amazing move. "Naruto!" Sakura exclaimed with joy. Dobi. Naruto wasn't shocked that Sai remained silent. "Maybe it's a bit much having you here, Jiraiya. Sama," thought Kakashi. With their Junin ranked opponents, the mission would undoubtedly be difficult, but he was confident they could overcome it. Then he became aware of the others. He was taken aback to see someone in particular. "Zabuza?" Kakashi received no information at all about how Naruto's group would support them. I see the old man hasn't told you anything. We already knew of shinobi being active in snow, so Sarutobi. Sensei thought it'd be safe to send us here, too. Jiraiya clarified. The sound of the cannons continuing to fire could be heard on the other side of the snow wall, asking, so what are you facing? We're facing 3 shinobi, 2 high. Chunin level, 1 high. Junin. I remember them from a mission long ago, back when I was still in Anbu. The leader is Nadare Roga, the others are Fubuki and Mizore. But they can't be the only ones. Naruto said coldly as a Rasengan came to life in his palm, I'll destroy the train. Firing something like that at my comrades. Unforgivable. He shook off all of them and continued on his way. Jiraiya gave him a palm smack across the forehead. He looked at Kakashi and said, here we go. He always goes out without a plan. Gaara trailed behind Naruto. Where's your client? The copycat said, she ran off. We gathered here because we heard the train coming. The cold is interfering with my ability to track sense. Perhaps we should split up. One team dealt with the enemy, the other finds Koyuki and takes her to safety. Jiraiya gave a nod. Your team finds Koyuki, my team doesn't know what she looks like anyway. We'll deal with the enemy. Nothing could stop Naruto from unleashing his Rasen Shuriken on the train as he stood on the other side of the snow wall. The train vanished in a matter of seconds, and the shinobi within were astute enough to escape the enormous explosion. Gaara appeared from the sand next to Naruto as he descended upon the trio of shinobi. With a harsh voice, Naruto said, sorry about your train. But you're going to die here. When the 3 simply laughed, Gaara folded his arms and scowled. The girl with pigtails and pink hair, Fubuki, exclaimed, 2 little kids? You think you can take care of us? Their leader, Roga, exclaimed, Fubuki, one of them destroyed our train with a high-level jutsu, don't underestimate them. Gaara muttered, their outfits, they're special. Naruto appeared behind the chubby Mizore and used his Ego Kaiki to cut him in half before any of them could blink. Blood splattered everywhere, but Naruto made sure nothing touched him, saying, not that special. After that move, Nadare and Fubuki immediately retreated, surprised at how easily Mizore was killed. Naruto snarled, jump around all you want. You'll die just as easily as him. Jiraiya became enthralled with Naruto's callous killing of a man. Having trailed Naruto, he and the others were astounded by how the character destroyed the entire train with just one jutsu. Zabuza laughed, watching as Naruto cut a fat person in half in an instant. He whispered to Haku, I don't know why he brought us here. He looks like he can take care of things himself. Haku had merely grimaced at Naruto's ease of killing. Tayuya had seen far more horrific sights than this. She found it enjoyable, in fact. A strange buzzing sound was heard suddenly in the middle of the debris that Naruto's Rasen Shuriken had created, and Jiraiya scowled. When Tayuya, Haku, and Zabuza saw the strange device, which had previously been a part of the train, fly, they all mimicked the frown. Zabuza smiled and started to run. Allow me. Haku, let's go. They saw the blonde look at the flying machine behind him and not even flinch. Roga witnessed as 2 shinobi sprinted in the direction of the tiny flying train and used chakra to cling to it. Dodo ought to be alright on his own. He turned back to his current opponents and resisted the urge to just run away, thinking, he's stronger than us, after all. How could the blonde have defeated Mizore with such ease? Why didn't their armor work against that sword of his if it was meant to neutralize chakra? Fubuki, her wings flexed on her back, said, Roga, I think we should retreat. These kids aren't normal. She certainly didn't sound like she did when she said, I don't think we can handle speed and power like that kid has. He balled his fists and said, I don't think they'll let us go that easily, Fubuki. He gave several hand seals and said, we underestimated them. Let's take them seriously now. Hyouden, Akaka Acure. With a calm expression, Naruto and Gaara looked up to see a massive ice whale with one horn approaching them. Gaara tried to stop it with his sand, but Fubuki charged at him and he was unable to stop it. With a smile on his face, Gaara skidded back, hoping the flying girl would follow. Anyhow, he had some free time to play. Rather than following suit, Naruto gave a few hand seals while gazing up at the descending whale. The moment he did so, the sword he was holding disappeared. It took a lot of chakra for him to perform the take flight technique, which would use wind chakra to launch the enormous ice whale into the air. Fuuten, Haisu no Jutsu. As Naruto sent the whale flying through the air like he was tossing away a kunai, Nadare's eyes grew wide. How? What else? Show me everything you've got, enemy of Konoha. Konoha's enemy. Roga thought. A little afraid. This opponent posed a greater threat than Kakashi. The boy glared as Jiraiya appeared next to him. I am not an enemy of Konoha, boy. I just need the woman you're protecting, Jiraiya said. The Toad Sage gave the order, Naruto, I'll handle him. You go back up Zabuza and Haku. Naruto looked at his old instructor. Okay, Jiraiya. Sama. But this guy deserves to die for unleashing those cannons. He rolled his eyes as he peered sideways and saw Gaara manipulating his opponent. Why is Gaara always acting that way? Then the blonde ran after Haku and Zabuza. With her arms crossed, Tayuya approached Jiraiya slowly from behind. Tayuya shivered and said, No way I'm fighting in this cold weather, she said, referring to Naruto. Why'd I still have to go everywhere he goes? To no one in particular. Jiraiya replied coolly, because Konoha doesn't quite trust you yet. Although I have to say Naruto trusts you already, it seems. Did he teach you some of his special jutsu yet? You know, the tracking kind? With hesitation, Tayuya replied, Yeah, some. He's an idiot. However, Jiraiya sensed that Tayuya wasn't sincere. He looked at the half-dead body on the ground and said, Hey, the kid's got some charm, I guess. But maybe he's a little too heartless. Roga, meanwhile, was in a different universe. Did that child just refer to this man as Jiraiya? Sama? Upon realizing he was well beyond his capabilities, he simply conceded defeat by bowing to his opponent. I surrender. I have no hope of victory nor do I see any chance of escape here. As the man was knocked out cold, Jiraiya praised him from behind, saying, Good choice, kid. The girl Gaara was fighting with was then knocked out by a chop to the neck using Shunshin. The sand user appeared to be very irate. Why did you do that? He gave Gaara, who was still staring at the girl as if he wanted to kill her, a dull look and said, These two have a Kekai Genkai. They can use Hyouten Ninjutsu. They might be useful to Konoha. And these two only seem to be following orders. Drop the killer intent, Gaara. Uzumaki. Taiko told you to kill your enemy, or did I not hear correctly? Jiraiya let out a loud sigh. Look, I'm taking these two captive, and I don't follow Naruto's orders anyway. I'm his teacher, remember? The redhead said, he will be upset. The older man slowly approached Fubuki after hoisting the girl over his shoulder. He can be upset all he wants, but you know as well as I do that these two aren't strong enough to worry about. And they truly might mean something to Konoha. We'll first get all the secrets about their special armor and their bodies might also contain secrets. He then raised his hand. Go help Naruto out or something. With a sigh, Gaara turned to face Tayuya, who gave a simple shrug. Dodo navigated the small airship away from the battles below, unaffected by the explosions that shook the ship throughout. Konoha, such scum. Always meddling in other people's affairs. Dodo. Sama. Turning his back on the ship's controls, the man witnessed one of his subordinates crash in the room where he was standing. There's a pant. There's a demon on the ship, and someone who can use Hyouten. They're strong, you need to. Dodo took his head off with a skillfully placed ice sword release, cutting him off. With one hand on his chest and a hand seal with the other, he said, Fool, and you led them straight to me? Kai. That caused his suit to become more adaptable and surrounded him with all the chakra he had been hoarding for the past few days. Let's see how strong this demon is, then. Then everything went haywire. Dodo barely made it out of the burning airship before it caught fire. He used ice to descend more safely after performing a few hand seals and quickly moving outside. He saw two shinobi, who were about a half-mile away, do the same. Haku made an ice slide to carry him and Zabuza safely to the ground. Dodo watched as the ship burst into flames and all of the surviving crew members fell to their deaths. He refused to take any action to save them. Those weak, useless fools. He was surrounded by trees as soon as he touched down. Then, a dense mist enveloped him, making it impossible for him to see the tree in front of him. Kirigakure no jutsu is this, Dodo muttered softly. I'm facing a silent killer, then? A loud voice asked, Who? You're not afraid of the silent killing method? From all around him. Haku, allow me to have some fun with my prey. We'll continue the mission. Jiraiya gave Kakashi a nod. Naruto will send these two to Konoha's interrogation department. He's got a space time fu and seal set up in one of the cells there, specifically for cases like this. Standing next to the tall man, Naruto scowled at him. Gaara nodded behind Naruto, saying, Why should I? These two deserve to be killed. The only thing of value they possess is that suit they're wearing. At Jiraiya's feet, Roga and Fubuki were still barely conscious. I told you, Brad. Konoha has never had a hideout in users. These two might change that. Afterwards, perhaps, we can kill them. But to be honest, they just followed their leader's orders. Naruto was dead serious when he asked, how can you be so casual about this? These two tried to kill Kakashi, Sensei and the others. Do you really think Kakashi would fall for something like 1,000 kunai flying straight for him? Even his genin wouldn't have had any trouble with it. Jiraiya lowered his arms. Just perform the Fuin, Naruto. I'll ask the old man to keep us up to date about these two, okay? Naruto poured some chakra into his left pinky, and then he said, Che. A tiny purple seal tag materialized in his hand. Subsequently, he executed several hand seals and raised both of his hands in front of him, with the seal tag sandwiched between his fingers. Jikukan Kekai. Before throwing Roga and Fubuki at Naruto, Jiraiya picked them both up. They were drawn into a time barrier just as they were about to touch Naruto. Surprised was Kakashi. Your Fuinjutsu is improving. I remember that the fourth Hokage was also able to use that jutsu. Jiraiya gave the copycat a simple wink. Kakashi, I'm training the brat so hard he'll surpass Minato in no time. Kakashi nodded, I'm sure. Currently, he, Jiraiya, Naruto, and Gaara were the only people seated amidst the train wreckage that Naruto had destroyed. Haku and Zabuza desired to return to Kiri alone, but the blonde had already sent Tayuya back to the rest of his team. Koyuki and the others were under the watchful eye of Kakashi's genin. Zabuza's excessive dissection of his opponent irritated Naruto a little. What the leader was wearing, the chakra armor, might have been helpful. You know, they seemed pretty down when they got back. Who did? The elderly man tried his best to absorb the pair in front of him. Naruto was dressed in the traditional Konoha Chunin uniform, albeit in a different shade. His was a dark gray outfit, whereas the others were usually green. Naruto's uniform had even more pockets than a Chunin uniform's. He even wore a belt around his waist that was fastened to another belt that was slung over his right shoulder. Extra pockets were also held by both belts. All those pockets, the Sandaime was certain, had a purpose. He was shocked to see that the blonde had exactly the same haircut that Minato had when she first walked in. However, he noticed that Naruto's hair was a little bit longer when he looked at the photo of Minato that was in his office. The blonde had a small, slanted mark beneath the right corner of her right eye, which was the kanji character for offspring. It appeared to be a scar, but it had the color of a fresh wound. It appears that he is being influenced by his friend Sabaku no Gaara. Jiraiya continued to look the same as always, but he appeared more, dare I say it, young, interesting. Team Kakashi, replied the elderly man. You barely talked to them in snow, it seems. Jiraiya cried out like a little child. I was also pretty down I never got to talk to that gorgeous Koyuki. Before turning to Naruto, he exclaimed, his cheeks strangely red, we're going back there soon. She owes us a thank you, at the very least. Unfortunately for him, Jiraiya and Naruto both disregarded him. Naruto gave a shrug. Naruto's eyes brightened. There was no time for pleasantries. There were enemies and they had a mission to accomplish, right? Speaking of enemies. He mumbled thoughtfully, yes, those two Hyouden users you brought in. They're still under the watchful eyes of the Anbu, but Morino Ibiki has spoken to them both already. But just once, which is not nearly enough. If his schedule allows it, Yamanaka Inoichi will soon pay them a visit as well. When he's done with them, we'll truly know if they can be useful to Konoha. When Jiraiya placed his hand on the blonde's shoulder, Naruto wanted to say more but snorted. The Toad Sage asked, shifting the topic, you've read our request, Sensei? Hiruzen opened a scroll on his desk that contained a map of the water country and said, Kirigakure, I've learned matters are resolved, but they've lost their Jinchuriki. Now a Biju runs amok across their lands, or seas. I have to say I'm surprised they requested your assistance, Naruto-kun. I know you have allied yourself with Momochi Zabuza, but that was before he became a Kiri.nin once again. Surely you realize we are not in alliance with Kirigakure? Old man, that woman told me you've denied their request for support, is that true? A civil war is a civil war. Outsiders have no business interfering in a matter that should be resolved from within. Hiruzen replied with a sigh. We have our own matters to attend to, after all. All classified. The old man grinned, having already provided an obvious answer to Naruto's next obvious question. It would have made matters worse, for both Kiri and Konoha. But I want to help them, I promised Zabuza. The third leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk and interlacing his fingers. This could be interesting, though. The new Mizukage, her name is Terumi Mei. And she wants to see if the Sanbi Jinchuriki is still alive inside of the Biju. He looked up in confusion. It is highly unlikely Yagura is still alive. Yagura? Inquired Naruto. Before the Sandame could respond, Jiraiya simply replied, yeah, the previous Sanbi Jinchuriki. He was also the Yondaime Mizukage. He was a good kid, or young man. But all of a sudden he changed into a tyrant. He was the one responsible for the bloodline purges. But the kid I knew from back then would never even think of doing something so foul. Hiruzen nodded, saying, indeed. It's widely believed that he was a fake or under duress, but who has the strength to manipulate a Jinchuriki cage? The elderly leader exclaimed, getting a little too enthusiastic. You'll have 2 missions, Naruto.kun. Upon entering the third's office, Naruto instantly installed silencing seals throughout the space, preventing any sound from escaping. First, you'll help the Mizukage, useless as her crusade will be. She will owe you an intern, Konoha. You'll take Jiraiya, Tsunade and Sabaku no Gara with you. The 4 of you should be enough to deal with the Sanbi. What? Tsunade? Why? Hiruzen interrupted. Secondly, you will capture Uchiha Itachi. Naruto was instantly silenced. He clenched his fists resolutely, remembering the moment the Uchiha had used the Tsukiyomi on him. Itachi, I'll tell you, I have my answer now. His plan was good, but now I have my own. A few seconds later, Jiraiya asked, Itachi? Why? Jiraiya seemed even more perplexed by the Hokage's statement, I need to speak to that boy, and soon. Mei was only mildly shocked to see Naruto appear out of nowhere after Zabuza threw the special kunai into the wall to her left. With a slight wince in his body, Naruto muttered, you sure took your time. The Hiraishin's long journeys always left him feeling a little chilly. Did you just get back? With a single cough, the Mizukage was already glaring at the blonde. Mei continued to look unimpressed as she gazed at the boy, asking, you're not one for subtlety or politeness, are you, Uzumaki Naruto? Even so, that was undoubtedly the Hiraishin, she said, giving the boy in front of her a closer examination. And, if my memory serves me correctly, he does resemble the yellow flash rather a lot. However, he stated that Uzumaki, not Namikaze, is his name. After giving her a brief glare in return, Naruto realized she was correct and bowed. I apologize, Mizukage. Sama. Both for my behavior 3 weeks ago. I wasn't thinking clearly and I didn't really know where Zabuza had summoned me back then, I know now. She no longer glared at him and instead looked at him with curiosity. Ao and Chojuro were visibly uncomfortable behind her. After all, it was odd that this boy could get into the Mizukage's office with such ease. And despite being outnumbered 5-1, he didn't even appear scared. But in a lighthearted conversation, Zabuza asked Haku, are you sure your name is not Namikaze? Naruto scowled, but he had suppressed a huge flinch deep down. Namikaze. He asked again, who's that? Mei, the redhead, laughed for a short while. Please, don't take me for a fool, Konoha Chunin. The jutsu you used is a feared one across all nations, the Hiraishin no jutsu. The distance between Kiri and Konoha is great and yet you sport no outside exhaustion from having used the Hiraishin for it. Even I know you need great stamina for the Hiraishin. She widened her eyes. You seem plenty proficient in the jutsu without being related to the Yondaime Hokage. Oh, Namikaze? Pretended to be innocuous. He smiled at her and said, let's just say I have extraordinary stamina, both physically and chakra. Wise. The Hiraishin seems made for me. In a more formal manner. Anyway, Hokage. Sama has approved of my request. Mei was a little taken aback by this. She never thought Konoha's leader would give in to her demands. He asked, your Hokage, is Sarutobi Hiruzen, correct? And Naruto nodded. What exactly did he allow you? Naruto truly told the guards behind the Mizukage, I'm going to grab a scroll from one of my pockets. No funny business, you have my word. The blonde sighed as the guards did nothing to relax their body posture. He gave the scroll to Mei, who proceeded to unravel it. She read it and spat out, you think I believe this? Is this a prank, Chunin? She got up from her seat and towered over Naruto, asking, is your leader mocking us? With some control over her rage. Haku and Zabuza didn't seem to know what to do. The blonde bowed once and said, I don't understand your reaction, Mizukage. Sama. There is a Sarutobi blood sign at the bottom of the scroll. It holds no lies. Mei shifted her gaze back to the scroll, clearly unconvinced. So you're saying Konoha is sending me 2 of their best? She asked, not realizing that her sending such formidable opponents here might even be seen as an act of war. Naruto gave a nod, By your permission, only. Mei stood there, still a little uncertain, and nodded to the blonde. Go ahead. This I want to see. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Those two are a pain in the ass sometimes. No, all three of them are, actually. He disappeared with a glance. As soon as the blonde walked away, Ao asked, What is wrong, Mizukage? Sama? What has you so angry? The elite Junin was actually unsure of what exactly was making his leader so angry, nervous, or confused. She said icily, Oh, I'm not angry, Ao, not yet. Haku and Zabuza stood there, not knowing what to do. The demon of the mist attempted to ask, Mei, permission to be excused? But her glare gave him away. Haku tried saying, Mizukage. Sama. Naruto.kun won't let you down. He's saved us, too, in the past. 2 times, even. Mei was angry, which was why Chojuro was trembling a little while he held his sword. Mei was rarely angry. That would be paid for by this blonde boy. But when the truth of what was written on the scroll was revealed, all of her resentment and other negative emotions vanished. In her office, Naruto had made a reappearance, accompanied by Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Gaara. You were serious, Mei uttered quietly. Why would he send you? Tsunade. Sama, Jiraiya. Sama? For a brief moment, everyone in the room was out cold. Suddenly, 2 of the 3 Sannin were standing in the office. In the space between Jiraiya and Tsunade, the blonde child received a clap on the shoulder. Mei commented, The old man likes this kid. You're very lucky. But pointed out that Naruto's shoulder was actually quite painfully gripped. The Mizukage led Jiraiya and the others to an island west of Kirigakure, surrounded by a large number of her trusted soldiers. Jiraiya was staring out into the sea with his eyes squinted, and they were accompanied by a troop of about 100 men, all ranked at least Junin. I don't sense anything out there. Naruto approaches him. Maybe we ought to visit Toad, huh? He muttered, gently prodding the elderly man in the side with his elbow. You don't have to be ashamed anymore about your looks now. Jiraiya gently pushed the blonde aside and said, Shut up, and you shouldn't, remember? The fair-haired woman shrugged. You know, I can't wait until the cat is out of the bag. Right, Gaara? As he joined the pair on the precipice, the redhead replied, Today's performance will surely change things. Gaara rubbed his stomach once and sighed, Hokage. Sama's orders were to go out big, right? Shukaku says he wants to do it himself. He says the Sanbi was always an easy target. Naruto gave him a stern look, and he isn't? Dully, Gaara relayed, he resents you for that. Tsunade gave them all a disinterested look and said, Mei told me to tell you guys to get ready. They have a jutsu that can lure the Sanbi to us. She glared at Naruto, saying, I see you guys are lazing about as usual. Hey, you little weasel, you and I still have unfinished business. When this mission is over we need to talk. Don't flash away like a coward. Naruto pointed a finger at her and said, But, you just want to beat me up, I'm telling you. The way you healed Shizune, that's for future references. Tsunade vowed, I owe you some punches, kid. Shizune could have died. But she didn't. You need to learn something. You can't just experiment on people like that. It wasn't an experiment. I knew you would be able to heal her. How could you have known? Asked the serious, looking blonde. There's no way you could have. She exclaimed when her question went unanswered. You experimented on both me and Shizune. I'm going to teach you a lesson about that. Naruto, Tsunade, and Gaara turned to see Jiraiya in Senjutsu mode and exclaimed, Silence down, already. Your bickering is getting old. The kid is sorry, alright, Tsunade. Not sorry enough. But she had already moved on to something else. Did you advance in the Toad arts, Jiraiya? You don't look so ugly anymore? He turned his back on them and gazed off into the distance, saying, Yeah, I'm awesome like that. He's coming. Let's do our thing. Kachiyose no jutsu, exclaimed one voice, and a fourth joined in, Henzuru. While still in charge, Tsunade had called forth Katsuyu, Jiraiya had called forth Gamabunta, Gamahiro, and Gaara had changed into the Shukaku. Naruto had called forth 2 Bird Kingdom bosses by using a significant quantity of chakra in his Birds of Prey Fuin summoning seal. When the smoke cleared and 6 enormous beasts were waiting for the Sanbi to arrive in the sea, Mei, Ao, and Chojuro all looked utterly shocked. Ao stammered, Mizukage. Sama. I don't think we can lose. Yes, Mei replied. I didn't expect them to pull out something like that. Though not as much as Mei and the others, Zabuza and Haku, who had 2 more swordsmen of the mist behind them, were equally as shocked by what they saw. Or as much as the 100 Kiri.nin that stood in the Mizukage's way, ready for battle. That brat sure makes things interesting, huh, Haku? Yes, he does. Behind Zabuza and Haku were Kushimaru and Amayuri, the lone female member of the fabled group. Despite their silence, you could tell they were in a tense state of mind. Tsunade was poised atop Katsuyu, poised for a fierce battle with her arms folded. Seated on top of Gamabunta with his legs crossed, Jiraiya was writing something in what appeared to be a notebook. With two swords at the ready, Gamahiro stood beside his fellow toad. In Shukaku form, Gaara was occupied with scanning his surroundings. Although he would never get used to seeing everything around him so small, he did find it enjoyable. And Senjutsu Bunshin was something Naruto had made. Senjutsu mode was also activated for him. Besides, he was too high up and too far away for anyone to notice. His clone was perched atop the enormous cockatrice Kokado's head. It had enormous wings, a reptile's body and back legs, and a rooster's head and front legs. Standing atop a massive griffin, Guri, was the real Naruto. It had enormous wings as well, but it was shaped like a lion with an eagle's head. Tsunade turned and saw the two enormous monster birds, and was astounded. Where did he get the contract for? What contract is that? The mythical birds of prey. Jiraiya whispered into the breeze. Someday you'll explain to me how you got a hold of them, Naruto. A single half. Biju and the summon bosses were prepared to defeat the three-tailed demon. Toby felt, rather than saw, the vast assembly of chakra off in the distance as he peered out. Strange. Konoha appears to be aiding Kirigakure. He growled, disliking the direction this was taking. And that feel of chakra is ominous. Whose is it? So, what do we do? Toby, also known as Uchiha Obito, turned to face Nagato, who appeared to have his mobility back. Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin are there. The new Mizukage is also no pushover. And the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi and Shukaku are also present. He began to count. Toby was not amused by this disruption to his plans, saying, should we fight them, it might very well end in our defeat. The Sanbi will be theirs, for now. It's a shame the Sanbi Jinchuriki bears the same seal as the Shukaku Jinchuriki has, or had. He tightened his grip. Jiraiya must have gotten really good at Fuinjutsu to be able to have fixed the seal on Gaara. So, they will restrain the Sanbi. Obito gave a nod. Yes, they will. Jiraiya by himself would have been enough for that. Yagura is no longer under my control, they'll most likely learn about me. The topic was one that was contentious. The two of them stood on a different island, far from the approaching battle. For the first time in years, Nagato started moving around with his feet and changed the topic. He remained lethargic. With this, my pads are useless to me now. I feel stronger, but also weaker. Toby tended to concur. Yes, where you were 7, you are now just 1. But all those 7 are in you. When you came to finally find me, you were but a shell of your former self, thanks to Hanzo having destroyed your legs. But even your former self was weak. I will train you, Nagato, to become a true Rinnegan user. What are we going to do about Otto? They're becoming a nuisance. They do not know it, but Otogakure is walking on threads created by me. I can cut them down whenever I feel like it. Toby said quietly. They're ants, and they are only a few. Nagato didn't seem to agree because Sasori's words concerned him a lot. Toby turned from what he had been looking at and said, we've found some promising shinobi. After taking off his mask, he showed that he was carrying 2 eternal Mangekyo Sharingan eyes. They'll do fine dealing with Jinchuriki. Meanwhile, Nagato was staring off into the distance. Uzumaki Naruto. I'm curious. Fuuten, Menman Danmaku. With a solemn expression on his face, Kankuro appeared to be dancing as he jumped up and down and around on his bare feet. But in reality, he was using his fingers and toes to manipulate wooden and iron puppets. Naruto was his opponent, and he was throwing little wind blasts at him and his puppets with ease. His fingers were so skilled that he could attach chakra strings that would allow him to use just one finger to operate 2 iron puppets. Chakra strings were already needed for a single puppet. His toes could still only manipulate wooden puppets at this point in his training. He had only recently begun. He was actually an extremely skilled taijutsu fighter thanks to his kugutsu training. Kujutsu, Dakitsu Doku. Naruto smiled as the poisonous fumes released by one of Kankuru's puppets turned the clearing they were in completely purple. Naruto just vanished, much to Kankuru's dismay. I should have known, Kankuru grumbled, turning his attention to his surroundings. Kujutsu, Jenny. His other puppets stayed where they were, but 4 of his metal puppets surrounded and shielded him. Fuuten, ni kuuatsu. Rolling his eyes, Kankaru saw Naruto's wind technique, which was grinding its way toward him. Kujutsu, Geni Guitsu. The 4 metal puppets interacted with each other and appeared to unite, encircling Kankaru in a metal dome that kept him safe. The puppets who had not formed a dome around Kankaru charged at him, and Naruto whistled in amazement. Nice, you can attack blindly now, too. Speaking through one of the puppets that had just missed cutting Naruto's right shoulder with a blade, Kankaru said, "No, I'm sure you haven't noticed, but some of my puppets have a camera attached to their eyes. That's why my left eye is covered." Naruto easily avoided all of Kankaru's attacks. Cool. I thought you just copied Dosu with his binocular sight. Since you can talk to me while inside that dome, I take it you have a microphone attached to all your puppets too? Kankaru asked. Voice of the puppeteer. Not all of them. The microphone attached to me was actually surgically attached, as in, it's inside of my jaw. Between 2 dodges, Naruto managed to deadpan. That's gross. Then he turned around, both hands in a hand seal. 3 of the puppets that surrounded Naruto were destroyed by blasts of wind, yelling, Fuuten, Sujikazi. Kankaru easily put all the puppets back together after Naruto's attack had disassembled them from inside the dome. That move looks too much like the Hyuga's Kaden, but I'm sure you knew that. Now his puppets were constructed from the smallest components. The blonde scowled at the puppets encircling him. I don't understand how your chakra strings can still control your puppets from within that dome, though. This time, Kankaru's voice came from a few puppets surrounding him, saying, it only looks like a dome, but it isn't, there are actually many openings. I see. Kankaru was not fond of Naruto's smile. After Naruto disappeared from the scene, Kankaru watched in horror through one of his puppets as 4 of the cage Bunshin from Naruto surrounded his metal dome and yelled the well-known Shishi engine. Kankaru moaned, oh boy, realizing that a 5th Naruto was inside the purple barrier he had just constructed. How's this then? Suiten, Furishikiru. Suddenly, water filled the Shishi engine. A puppeteer is not a fan of the water. He was having a great time bouncing and dodging his rival. He was under pressure, but it didn't faze him in the slightest. He did not seem to be able to stop grinning as he leapt repeatedly. In the art of taijutsu, he possessed greater speed, agility, and experience. Even after accounting for that, he could still feel the pressure from his opponent's unusual ability. It challenged him more than it scared him. Though a little slowly at first, they were both learning. Konoha Sapporo. Although his opponent didn't take much damage from his quick and accurate strikes, he was becoming predictable. With ease, he flipped off the weights on his ankles and performed a backflip. Taiju Cage Buyu, however, his opponent appeared prepared for his taijutsu multiple shadow dance move. Lee smiled to himself, seeing all sides of his opponent wherever she turned due to his speed. He had reached extremely high levels of shunshin speed. He launched several punches and kicks, but only felt joy when some of them were truly blocked. But he had to back down quickly. She was so dangerous now that the punch she had thrown at him would have knocked him out cold. Excellent, Sakura-san. It seems you not only use your chakra to strengthen your attacks, but also your defense. You are excellent, he gave her the thumbs up. Though she was panting, the pink-haired Chunin was beaming at him. You're still too fast for me, Lee-san. But I'll hit you eventually. I have no doubt, Chunin, dressed in green spandex, exclaimed. Let us continue. Once more, Sakura covered herself with her chakra. That way, Lee's attacks wouldn't be as laborious. She gave herself a couple of hand seals and put her fingers to her lips to store a move she could use later. It was only possible for a shinobi with exceptional chakra control to postpone a jutsu's execution. She was a shinobi with superb chakra management. Lee was so fast that he approached her from 3 different directions. Sakura, however, didn't care as she drove her fist deep into the earth, scattering large pieces of dirt all around her. Lee entered Sakura's personal space with ease by using shunshin to get around every piece of earth that was thrown at him. The gifted medic. Nin was still able to match Lee's speed and parry the majority of his blows. She grabbed Lee's wrist as he was attacking and, without using hand seals, let go of Kaden. Suku no Jutsu. This startled Lee, who was unable to dodge anyhow. Sakura appeared to be spitting in Lee's direction, but her spit was fiery. Little and inoffensive, but she was letting loose a lot of them, and Lee had no choice but to absorb all of the blows. The taijutsu practitioner took a hit and gritted his teeth before throwing Sakura over his shoulder and then hitting single cage buyu. As Sakura was hurled over Lee's shoulder and caught in midair, he was unable to avoid Lee's rear kick during the shadow dance. Lee tried to hit her again, but she landed on one knee and one foot and rolled quickly away. Now both were panting from the serious damage they'd sustained. Magnificent display, Sakura-san, Lee. The two Chunin turned to face Maeda Guy, who had suddenly materialized. I've come to fetch you two for a mission. So, how is he? I haven't seen him in Konoha for a few months now, and that probably means no one else has seen him for at least a year, besides you and I. Tsunade, pretending to read the next document, boredly stamped her approval on one of the documents on her desk. He's bound to be back in no time, Kakashi. Jiraiya told me they were in Snow Country last month, helping them build up a shinobi system. I really do wonder how that one's going to turn out. Their leader isn't a shinobi, after all. Princess Yuki. No, hardly. But didn't you tell me they were in Snow Country last month as well? I would assume they're setting up something permanent over there. The fifth shrugged and said, could be. She turned to Kakashi and said, Jiraiya's team can do whatever the hell they want. Her eyes were serious. I pity anyone trying to take on even one member of that squad. Kakashi sighed and reached for his Icha, asking, is that so? I wonder if I can have a crack at them. I'm sure I'll be seeing him again soon. Minato. Sensei's boy has really turned out greater than I imagined. Hell, Sasuke and Sakura turned out greater than I thought, but Naruto. You're right. That little brat's always been too secretive and he's never really been pushed to his limits. Even Jiraiya can't do that. Kakashi looked twice at Tsunade's expression, but it was unvarnished. She meant business. You mean that Jiraiya has? He squinted. Surely he hasn't gotten that far with his training? Tsunade arched her brow at Kakashi's raised brow, saying, you're a fool, Kakashi. I witnessed him doing senjutsu 3 years ago. I think he was already on par with Jiraiya back then and he was only 13. It's physically impossible to master the art of nature at that age, yet somehow he has managed it. She clenched her right hand. Those two are keeping secrets. I was able to not care about it, but then this happened. Naruto had a run.in with the Akatsuki about a month ago. You've heard of the battle in Kusagakure, right? One Akatsuki member changed the entire landscape with a single jutsu, but then the Icha of Kakashi was still in his pocket. So did Naruto. He had developed tremendously over the years, reaching previously unheard of levels in his repertoire of jutsu and fuinjutsu. He was even given a new nickname, Konoha's Hedgehog. Since Tamari was more skilled in food and ninjutsu than he was, he felt it was undeserved. But Tamari couldn't easily execute the food and defense he used because it requires a lot of chakra. Right now, scrolls covered everything around him, some even encircling his body. He had long since outperformed most fuinjutsu practitioners, but he was primarily reading about ways to get better at it. Scrolls that contained information about the art were either out of date or contained details he was already aware of. He and Jiraiya had traveled from nation to nation to learn new things, delving even deeper into fuinjutsu than the Toad Sage had ever ventured. Regretfully, it appeared that Konoha had the more skilled users, and Uzushiyogakure's usage was not well documented. The most information they had, however, had come from the old Uzumaki archives in Konoha. Without even having to eliminate the Akatsuki, they had an idea of how to foil their schemes. However, a great deal of research was required, and Jiraiya was the only person who could assist him. Maybe it was time to face the Bunshin that was used in the seal. Granting it chakra might enable him to have a longer dialogue. It had also become easier to talk to Kurama in the past few months. He threw aside a pointless scroll that was based on Iwagakure's fundamentals of fuinjutsu and crossed his arms over one another while obnoxiously staring at the wall across from him. It's probably time, he muttered. The Akatsuki has grown more aggressive over the years and they've grown in numbers as well. I can't postpone it any longer. Taiko. Even before Gaara approached the building he was in, the blonde could sense him. Even though their unique attire was adorned with fuin seals, his team was always able to sense one another. It's about Otto. Rumors or their grounds have grown even further. After they overtook Yugakure and Takigakure, they've become a pain for Fire Country, and now this. There are rumors Orochimaru has been seen lurking around? Naruto appeared unsurprised by the unexpected revelation. I figured as much. Anko and Tayuya. Their curse seal seemed filled with life energy, even if it was just a little. Orochimaru is known for his regeneration skills. One of our missions would be to kill every single individual carrying his Juinjutsu just to kill that snake. Naruto was littered with scrolls, but Gaara didn't seem at all alarmed by this. He couldn't understand how the blonde could work in this chaos. The Akatsuki has taken over Sunagakure and Tanigakure, as we all know. Both Otogakure and Omegakure are considered great nations now, just like the other 5. Having anticipated that the Akatsuki would grow, Naruto nodded. Gaara, I think it's time we make a major move as well. I will talk to the remnants of my parents in the seal and see if they can teach me more or if they perhaps know of an easier way. I see. Are you sure you don't want to have a more pleasant conversation? That's why I'll take a special pill. With my chakra raised beyond the limits, I'm certain we can talk all we want. The only requirements are for Tsunade and several other high-ranked shinobi to be present. So, we're going to be performing it in their place? Should I send the word for Karabi and Yugito? Gaara easily predicted. The blonde man gave a headshake. Not yet. I think it's time we head back to Konoha and inform Tsunade of the entire plan first. If we are going to perform the jutsu, we might as well be in our own village, being protected by as many shinobi as possible. I, after all, will not be able to defend myself. Gaara's eyes narrowed. So, instead of them hunting for us, we are hunting for them. Yes. To be able to perform the jutsu, we need to have something they have in their possession. Gaara mumbled, the King of Hell statue. If what you say is true and it's protected by Fuinjutsu, then the Akatsuki most likely have a Fuinjutsu expert in their midst. Naruto concurred, saying, I could have summoned it otherwise. It's already assigned to someone. Records state it had been in the possession of Uzushiogakure. That means someone knows about Uzushiogakure or was perhaps even from Uzu. And I can't help but think it can only be him. Gaara gave a head nod. The redhead considered the options, a difficult opponent. We had a lot of trouble with him the last time. But to break a bond between summon and summoner, it's not necessary to break that bond. Just like with summoning contracts for animals, a summon can be assigned to several individuals, not just one. All I need is to fight with the statue and somehow form a link. I think I'll need Sasuke for this mission, if his Sharingan has evolved enough. So it's final, then. We are going to perform Genryu Q Fusion on you, Gaara said. Yes, we will assault Akatsuki, sighed the fair-haired Konoha Junin. Tamari asked, her expression a mix of frustration and tiredness. Are you serious? We've almost arrived back at base and we're already returning to Konoha? The once Suna.nin, now Konoha Junin, became enraged with Konkaru, who didn't appear to be afraid of seeing his sister upset. Hey, don't look at me. I think Taiko's finally making his move. The plan he has been working on for years. It seems we can't afford to slack off anymore. Kumogakure seems quite restless as well. The growth of Otogakure has them on edge and there has been talk about Kumo and Konoha planning to take Oto down before they grow beyond control. To Dosu, Tamari said, a war, huh? You know more about Oto, right? Kabuto and Orochimaru. The mere mention of those names made Dosu wince. They know of a certain kinjutsu that can bring back the dead. Kachiyose. Edo Tensai. With a casual mention, the trio's puppeteer said, we all know of that jutsu. Naruto. Taiko can easily deal with the walking corpses by use of Fuinjutsu. With an equally casual response, Dosu said, I know that. But they can bring back legends, shinobi who are just as strong as the average Kage. Perhaps they're even bringing back deceased Kage. I think that's why Oto has so easily taken over the other villages. He was snarling at nobody in particular. He had a strong dislike for Orochimaru and Kabuto since they had experimented on him. I would love to take them down. He had now developed significantly under Jiraiya's and his peers' guidance. How he wanted to defeat Orochimaru on his own. No, he would adore killing Kabuto one more time. Tamari gave Dosu a gentle tap on the shoulder and said, don't worry, Dosu. We first have to deal with what threatens Taiko. The Akatsuki comes first. Who knows? Perhaps the Akatsuki and Oto will kill each other. I heard the Akatsuki is also after Orochimaru. Konkaru laughed. The enemy of our enemy is our friend? Dosu asked in a mocking manner. No, we should take the opportunity to take both out at the same time. Neither the Akatsuki or Oto would fight alongside us. So, Kurama. So, weak pile of rotting flesh. Naruto laughed and walked up to the big demon fox. You know what's coming, right? The other Uzumaki, he might know what you're up to. Perhaps, but it's not like he can stop me. Besides, the way we finished our fight, it was weird. He acknowledged you as a fellow Uzumaki, but that doesn't mean he isn't your enemy still. There was nothing between the blonde and the Kyuubi as they conversed in Naruto's mindscape. Nothing existed, not even a Kage. When we perform the Genryu Q Fusion without the King of Hell statue, you'll be free, Kurama. And without the proper help, you will die afterwards. I am an Uzumaki. You saw how my mother survived your extraction, so I will be able to do the same. Fool, you don't know that. Your mother was a full-blooded Uzumaki. You are half Namikaze, half Uzumaki. You might just die instantly. Naruto confidently said, there will be high-ranked Iryu.nin present. They'll patch me up. Kurama tensed up. We've had this conversation before. I am in no mood for games. Why have you come now? When you're free, the Akatsuki will still come for you. I want you to be able to summon me if you need my help. Kurama appeared taken aback, even shocked. He gave a short laugh and snorted, saying, I don't need your help. If anything, a weakling like yourself requires mine. Che. Very well, I've been running with the silly thought long enough. I'll let you summon me, if you need my help. It goes both ways, then, we'll summon each other whenever we need each other. I never thought I would be willing to do this, but, Kurama slammed Naruto's small frame with his enormous fist. He collided with the wall that was behind him. He smirked at the scowl Naruto was wearing as the blonde dragged himself out of the wall, saying, I have given you some of my chakra, permanently. You had better be grateful. This ensures your survival when I'm extracted from you. The small part of my chakra allows certain uses. Kurama stuck out his fist, seeming surprised at Naruto's reaction. Kurama fumed at Naruto's questioning expression. Bump my fist and envision giving me your chakra. But not just your chakra. I want you to envision giving me chakra that is of great importance to you. Small, but in essence, you. Chakra from your stupid, ugly shitheart, human. Don't make me say it again. The blonde did so, bewildered and dazed, with a tiny grin. Naruto realized what had happened when their fists collided. Before you say anything, this is not like that stupid suggestion you made in the past. This is not Futagogakure no Jutsu. I know, this is fusion, but it isn't. I assume the seal on my stomach will not vanish after the Genryukyu fusion, since the seal will actually be your chakra that you will leave behind permanently? Exactly. A sealing resembling Naruto's stomach was present on the fox's abdomen, and you are the same to me as I am to you after the Genryukyu fusion. This also means our chakra presences and existences have been permanently altered. Madara won't be able to summon me again. So when we summon one another, we'll be each other's Jinchuriki, yes. You humans have the expression, blood brothers, I believe. Like that, we are chakra brothers. Wait a minute, you hitting me like that was completely unnecessary. True, Kurama appeared to think about it for a while, but I felt like it. A 20-1-year-old Chunin collapsed to his knees while 6 people walked by him in the street. It wasn't that the 6 shinobi hurt him, it was just that their sheer presence was so overwhelming. It only made sense, though. Who wouldn't be amazed to see these 6 in front of them, even if their presence wasn't overpowering? Shodem Reikage was the first, with electricity sizzling all over his limbs as he moved. The Shodem Mizukage and Shodem Tsuchikage walked to his left and right, respectively. Walking alone, Hitaki Sakumo was behind the 3 Kage. Sakumo was followed by Sarutobi Bawako and Sarutobi Kaien, a mother and son. Otogakure was now a far larger village. They could now compete with the other great villages after taking over Ricefield Country, Frost Country, the country of hot springs, and Waterfall Country. Its leader was Orochimaru, who had been brought back to life by Kabuto using a curse seal in one of his experiments. Kabuto had returned with many legendary shinobi, having mastered the Edo Tensei. Orochimaru had become proficient in Kabuto's Edo Tensei and understood that certain revivals were uncontrollable. He would prefer not to play Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara as they were absolute trump cards. Master and disciple were slithering through a dark corridor when Kabuto's sly voice echoed, I've managed to sort the Edo Tensei, Orochimaru. Sama. They didn't work that well when mixed with different nationalities. Kabuto, it's not a matter of them not working well. What is not working well is your control. But it can't be helped, your mind is very fragmented because of your upbringing. You have 0 to no resolve in you. Orochimaru laughed. But I think that is a good thing. You are my most loyal soldier because of your lack of resolve. Kabuto appeared unoffended. It can't be helped that the Edo Tensei links my mind to all the subjects. For the first time, Kabuto appeared perplexed as he said, even though I think it's a good thing that you lack resolve, I think we should change that. I have revived your mother, Kabuto. No, the walking maiden. Gazing over the vast country that he now had command over, Uzumaki Nagato was lost in contemplation. Kusagakure, Ishigakure, Tanigakure, and Sanagakure had all fallen under his banner. Now that the Akatsuki had betrayed Iwa, Iwa wanted them destroyed. After all, Ishigakure was a subvillage of Iwagakure. That didn't worry him, though. Their current strength would be sufficient to deal with Iwa and Unoki. Uzumaki Naruto, his nephew, caused him more concern. The things said in the altercation those months prior. They were making him confused. From 10 members, the Akatsuki now boasted well over 100. Even though not all of them were as strong as the original 10, they were still very strong. Nagato took great pride in his historical accomplishments. Omegakure had expanded into a vast nation from a tiny village. If only he didn't feel so horrible every time he spoke with Toby about his previous deeds, all the killing and plundering, was everything really okay? This is not justice. This is a massacre, Nagato. And the both of us are part of it, not because of you or me, but because of everyone. Naruto, we need to have another battle of fists to reach comprehension. We have not settled things yet. Nagato. You called for me? Conan. The red-haired Uzumaki cast a cold stare at his purple-haired friend. Leave Akatsuki, Conan. Befriend the Uzumaki if you can, but seriously. Join his cause. If that is impossible, then do as you wish. You are my determination. On the battlefield, should you be there, it is you and only you who can make me reconsider everything. Conan walked over to Nagato and said, somehow, I am not surprised. You are punishing yourself. Now and in the future. Perhaps you've done things wrong, but you've never really did those things by your own choice. Nagato gave a feeble nod of his head, which is why I'm doing this, by my own choice. I was too weak to shape a path of my own. Perhaps I can rectify that weakness and create a road of clarity. What about me? With a sincere smile, Nagato acknowledged his old friend. Conan, it's up to you. He abruptly reached into his pocket for something. My nephew gave me this knowing I wouldn't betray family. But he remains my enemy as I stand in my own creation. I can never use this while in Akatsuki, and even then, he would know and be ready for it. He is a fool with too much trust, but I won't be the one taking advantage of his naivety. Conan accepted the gift that Kanai Nagato had given her. It probably wouldn't be a good idea to throw it at her right now. When you're in trouble, throw this. Naruto will know an Akatsuki member will have thrown it, so be ready to face him and his entourage when you do. Nagato, I never knew hey, I can't figure him out either. We decimated an entire country together, trying to kill each other. And yet he gave me his kunai. If you do somehow manage to join his cause, do it truly. Forget about Akatsuki. I'll always be by your side, Nagato. He collected a lot of chakra and did a few hand seals before saying, I know. Now go. This rain will cover our country, fire country and lighting country. It will protect you and obscure you. Be safe. As the rain started to fall all around them, their separation was filled with sadness. I won't let you down. Nagato let out a deep sigh as he watched her leave. You never will. Why are they always so early? Damn troublesome, energetic weirdos. Quit your whining, Nara. Sakura shook her head, taking in the sight of the two strolling beside her. The three of them were approaching the gates that led outside of Konoha when they remarked, you guys never change. They could already make out Guy and Lee in the distance. Shikamaru Nara was placed in a squad with other Junin and Shunin after being promoted to the rank of Junin. Sarutobi Asuma was his superior, and Kamizuki Izumo and Higane Katetsu were his teammates. His only change from before was that he now had stubble growing out of his chin. Other than that, his hairstyle remained the same. As a Chunin now, Yamanaka Ino had been Mitarashi Anko's apprentice. She had developed into one of Konoha's most skilled poison users, and her clan techniques were almost catching up to her father's. She had slightly longer hair and wore makeup akin to that of Yuhi Kurenai. In contrast to the standard outfit, she was dressed in a purple shirt and shorts in addition to her green Chunin vest. The two currently have a mission with Maeda Guy, Rock Lee, and Haruno Sakura. The group's blonde member sighed as they got closer to Rock Lee and Maeda Guy. Just get on with it. Being assigned with those two will always be a pain. Sakura butted in between them, saying, they're not that bad. They make for great motivators. Who needs motivators? Shikamaru asked, strolling past Sakura and Ino, saying hello to Guy and Lee before leaping up to the gate tower to greet his regular teammates, Katetsu and Izumo, who were on duty. Lee jumped and yelled around the two girls. Sakura.san, Ino.san. Are you ready to beat another record? We are going to Kumo in half a day. Ino wanted to make sure she wouldn't die while traveling to Kumo, so she asked, are going to try? Sakura? She inquired about assistance. But Sakura was staring blankly at the gates as Katetsu and Izumo had opened them, looking shocked and bewildered. It's been almost 2 years. Sakura. Ino asked as she turned around and saw a group of people she hadn't seen in a very long time. The first person through the gates had a bored expression on his face and his arms crossed over one another. He had a dark red shirt on underneath his armor, which was dark brown. He wore dark brown shorts and black sandals with black gloves. Clearly, Ino knew right away that he was Sabaku no Gaara. She could tell by the way he carried himself that she should avoid him or simply die. A young man with brown hair and many scrolls on his back quickly followed him. He wore black sandals and a black cloak that covered his hands. Ino failed to identify him. When she noticed the purple marks on his face, she did feel as though she had seen him before. There was something covering his right eye, though. A dark fabric? She knew right away that this man was Sabaku no Tamari, standing next to the man with the purple marks. She used to wear her hair loose, just below her shoulders, but now it was pulled back in 4 little pigtails. Her eyebrows were idly hidden by her bangs. She wore a purple and white ensemble with fishnet stockings underneath. Ino squinted her eyes. Tamari was undoubtedly a bombshell. Tamari's presence indicated that the man beside her was Konkaru, her brother. She saw, behind Tamari and Konkaru, a mummy walking. She had no idea who that was. He wore metal shoes and a large coat that was partially covered in fur around his mummy costume. How strange. She looked to make sure. Yes, she had metal gauntlets on too. There was a young woman with red hair next to the mummy. A few bangs hovered in front of her face, and her hair reached her waist and possibly even below. She was not a mummy, but it appeared that she had numerous bandages wrapped around her limbs. A dark green cloak that came up to her knees and elbows covered most of her. Ino arched her left eyebrow, a little irritated. One more gorgeous woman. She felt that she should recognize the pair behind them, but it was the toad sage Jiraiya who was writing in a small notebook. Hold on a moment. Should Jiraiya-sama return, it implied. It turned out that there were still 2 individuals strolling and conversing casually behind Jiraiya. Without a doubt, she didn't know the girl. Her upper body was covered in white armor, fastened by a red backpack that appeared to hold a large scroll. Actually, the large scroll appeared to be the entire backpack. She was wearing fishnet stockings underneath, just like Tamari. Her hair reached slightly above her chest and had a mint green color. She was also rather attractive, which annoyed Ino somewhat. The greater surprise was right next to her. Naruto Uzumaki, and he appeared so grown up. He was wearing black armor that was heavily bound. There appeared to be an infinite number of pockets crafted into the dark red bindings. His neck was covered by the hood of a dark brown hoodie that was worn underneath his black armor. He was dressed in black sandals and dark brown shorts. But what surprised me the most was his hair. It was as long as Tamari's, really. Moreover, he was stubbled. Ino felt like she was staring at a different guy as he talked to the girl next to him with his hands in his pockets. A young man of distinction, Sakura. As he landed next to Ino, Shikamaru drew lead absent-mindedly. Hey, if it isn't Naruto and his gang. Can't sense them at all, huh? As a sensor.nin, Ino tried to sense their collective chakra levels by blinking, and saw that Shikamaru was correct. It appeared as though none of them were moving slowly toward them. It felt as though they had never been there. Rock Lee was trembling with anticipation as he watched every newcomer arrive in Konoha. Yosha. His teacher laughed hysterically and put a hand on his shoulder. Looks like we're in for some fun when we get back. It is a shame we have a mission to accomplish. Sakura was stunned by his new appearance and could only say, Naruto. It was his eyes, though, that altered her the most. They appeared to be extremely burdened. Naruto yelled at his group, wait up, guys. His smile was contagious. Looks like we have some familiar faces to greet. Gaara scowled at the group that appeared to be getting ready to go on a mission. You are? Rock Lee? Lee became alert at that. Hua. So you remember. You owe me a real match, Gaara-san. The redhead spread out his arms and said, I owe you a real match? How do you figure? I do not recall ever having fought you. Lee bounded around Gaara with excitement. Exactly, our match during the Chunin exams. We never rescheduled. Gaara appeared to become more perplexed by the moment. Nobody was offering assistance. He decided to say, I see, then we should reschedule. Finally, you are someone I have wanted to face for a long time. I will seek you out when we return from our mission. Gaara looked at the young man in front of him and cocked his head slightly, saying, you seem to like yelling. But very well. I look forward to our real match, Lee-san. Lee, leave him alone. Gaara's a busy guy. I am not. Naruto laughed and gave Lee a fist bump. It's good to see you. You've grown strong, huh? And stronger I shall grow. The expert in taijutsu said as he bowed to Naruto once. You are the leader of your squad, Naruto-kun? The blonde nodded his head idly, but it was clear he wasn't being lazy. I am. He was growing more enthusiastic by the moment. So, if I defeat Gaara-san, I can challenge you? He asked. That is, until he was struck in the head by someone. To Naruto's amusement, Ino shoved Lee aside and approached him, saying, Lee, stop challenging everyone. Naruto scowled in bewilderment as the other blonde grabbed some of his long hair and said, So, Naruto. You sure have changed. It suits you, this long hair. I might just ask you out for a date. Naruto took a small step back, startled. Wait, what? Yamanaka Ino. Weren't you the girl who always yelled at me? Ino gave a small, ashamed shrug. Times change? Sakura suddenly pushed her aside to make way for her to enter the scene. Stop hassling him, Ino.pig. Shikamaru looked back, his face contorted. Can't we go already, guy? Sensei? The tall Junin turned to Shikamaru and said, Nonsense, this is a pleasant reunion, we can't interrupt just yet, young Nara. With a flashing smile. But the Nara's eyes were closed. Naruto, who was now a head and a half taller than Sakura, patted her on the head and said, Sakura, long time no see, your hair has grown long, huh? Sakura, blushing slightly at the strange touch, fingered her long hair. Naruto also observed that Ino's hair was significantly longer than it had been previously, saying, Yeah, Ino.pig has been teaching me hair techniques. He surmised that by using superior chakra control, they could keep everything out of the way during a battle. With a quick chuckle, Naruto turned to face Jiraiya. Hey, maybe you can help them out, huh, Jiraiya? Sama. In the middle of his response, the notebook he was writing in mysteriously disappeared. Oh absolutely, I always have time for young women working hard to learn my special techniques, he exclaimed. The great Toad Sage. Tamari stepped forward as Jiraiya began to yell something. She cast a strange glance at the girls in front of Naruto and said, Taiko, we should report to the Hokage. Word should be sent to Kumo quickly, too. Hua. They're calling you Taiko, Taiko, Taiko. That is amazing, Naruto, Ku. Lee was ignored by all. Sakura stood in front of her former teammate and said, Naruto, you've been gone for so long. How have you been? She discovered that she had been missing him a great deal now that he was here. You sure do look different. Oh this? He said, slightly raking his own long hair. I just got lazy about it and I don't mind. More importantly, how have you been? How is everyone? Hey, is that you, Shika? What are you doing hiding back there, you lazy bastard? Difficult to deal with. The Nara moved forward and gave Naruto a single fist bump. Konoha was very nice and quiet, but I'm sure that will change now. It's good to see you back, though. Dreary, Naruto answered, yeah, nice to see you too. Sakura cut her off, saying, Shikamaru is a Junin now, you know. Sasuke-kun too. Of all the rookies they, Shino and Neji have been promoted to Junin. I'm still a Chunin, though. Sakura felt like a little child again when Naruto patted her head. You'll be Junin in no time, Sakura. I mean, even I am Junin now. You are? Of course, I turned Chunin earlier than all of us, right? It wasn't surprising at all, now that she thought about it. She also couldn't shake the feeling she got when he was standing in front of her. It seemed like Naruto had transformed into a powerful, self-assured shinobi. Even with Kakashi Sensei in front of her, it wasn't the same. She just knew that Naruto was better than Kakashi. See, congratulations, Naruto. Although he wasn't prepared for the hug, he accepted it. Once more, Sakura felt Naruto's hand on her head, but she didn't mind at all. Sakura, congratulations to you too. Hey, I got promoted to Chunin too, you know? Naruto grinned at Ino, turning away from Sakura just a little. Congratulations to you too, Ino. Yeah. Now what about my hug? But the Nara's mind was elsewhere when he said, You've gotten troublesome, Naruto. This whole team of his is suspicious. This group came together following the invasion years ago and simply left Konoha. However, none of them are native to Konoha. Finally, there's Naruto. After utterly dominating Sasuke, the class clown was given full squad responsibility. Was he all along suppressing this power? This time it was the red-haired girl who insisted, Uzumaki. Taiko, we really should get going now. Have your reunion when we're actually off the clock, okay? As Sakura joined Lee, Guy, and Shikamaru, the blonde exclaimed, Jiyu's right. We really should report to Hokage. Sama. Let's hang out when you get back. We're staying in Konoha for at least a month. With her arms encircling each other, Ino also joined her group. With a wave, they all disappeared with a shunshin. Good luck on your mission, guys. Wow, those guys all look like badass guys, Ino said after a moment. I wouldn't want to fight any of those guys, the group's most slothful member casually said. Especially not that energetic Naruto. I am eager to battle Naruto-kun. He appears to be a strong shinobi, exclaimed Lee, his usual enthusiastic self, once. I was unable to read Uzumaki Naruto's stance at all, Guy thought to himself while his temporary team conversed. He owes me a hug, Ino. Pig stop messing around. Uzumaki Naruto. Ah, yeah? That's me? You have a lot to explain, brat. With a smile, the blonde attempted, but was unsuccessful, to break the enmity Tsunade was wearing. Well, what do you want to know? Asked the blonde's entourage, chuckling. She gave Fu a meaningful look as she leapt behind Naruto, saying, I want to know how you managed to put a stop between a fully transformed Gobi and a Rinnegan user who seems to be the leader of the Akatsuki. I know all about Fu and how she escaped to Kusagakure after Takigakure was taken over by Otto. You have a knack for adding people to your squad who aren't from Konoha. She faced Naruto once more. She pointed abruptly to the oldest man in the room and said, but you need to explain how you can do the things you do. The blonde Hokage smirked and said, Jiraiya can keep secrets, but you forgot one thing. Directed at Naruto. I know when this old lecher is lying. Hey, they disregarded the toad sage. I asked him if the two of you had gone all out against each other and he said he could still kick you around. Jiraiya blinked, and Naruto looked perplexed. Her eyes never left Naruto. That was a blatant lie, wasn't it? Alright, let's start with a few hand seals. The blonde Junin had set up a sound barrier in Tsunade's office, saying, Kenpo. Madden. Zatai Fugen. So, here's the thing. Did you know that a combination of Fuinjutsu and Iryu Ninjutsu can lead to very interesting results? Tsunade conveyed her lack of concern by shaking her head and shoulders. Jiraiya decided to give him support, placing a hand on his shoulder. Time.travel, Heim. The fifth appeared even less impressed than before. I can finally explain why I did what I did to you and Shizune, said Naruto. She appeared irate and unimpressed now. And now that Namikaze Sensei has told me about the real training, I can finally get started. Naruto gulped under Tsunade's glaring gaze. Here's the story. Tsunade had a lot on her mind as Naruto's team left her office. Jiraiya's support for him suggested that Naruto wasn't making up any of the information. Thus, it's true that he received a visit from his future self. And his world was one in which Konoha did not exist. The news was a little concerning. But while delivering the message, the time traveler perished. Naruto must have found it terrible to witness his own death in that way. She had always been curious about the effects of using the pill he had given her, but now she knew the answer. They had Jinchuriki in mind. However, that did not make them any less deadly to them. It appears that the tablet decoupled the amount of chakra reserves by reaching into them. An extremely risky tablet. It was extremely deadly to the human body, akin to living 10 days in a single day. This was less dangerous for a Jinchuriki than for a regular shinobi. After pushing herself to the breaking point and succumbing to the pill, Shizune had begun to notice these symptoms and realized she needed to significantly replenish her chakra reserve. Fortunately, she carried soldier pills with her, which she could not have used on Shizune at that moment. No, in order to make a completely new jutsu that she had made up on the spot, she had to swallow the soldier pill herself. Developing the chakra reserve transfer method. She did a terrible job naming jutsu. However, she knew why this medication was made. It could force a regular shinobi to engage in a head battle with a Jinchuriki. And it might enable a Jinchuriki to match a Biju in combat. She sighed deeply as she reclined in her chair. She whispered, "What am I going to do with you, Naruto? A 16-year-old boy has outperformed Jiraiya and me," she said, considering the group he was a member of. She laughed. "Maybe I should just call them Konoha's bounty hunters. I could always use extra money." "I can't believe you managed it. Raikage." Sama suggested it before I was able to speak. Kumo Junin, a blonde, scowled at the woman strolling beside her. "Eh? Sama did? I find that hard to believe. You were on a mission during the Chunin exams in Kumo, so you don." "I know. During the Akatsuki invasion I wasn't here to protect my village. You don't have to remind me all the time," Yugito replied. Samui arched an indifferent brow. "No one ever reminds you of that. In fact, I think no one has ever mentioned that." However, Yugito had already reached a phase of insufference rants. Samui gave the arrogant Junin a sorrowful sigh. Darui, who was walking in front of the two women and beside Karabi, said indifferently, "Don't bother when she gets like that. Although it's a surprise to me too, that you got assigned this mission with me instead of she. Usually it's she and I who go on missions with Karabi. Samui's in it for a reason, and now's the season." All the months went by without a single butterfly. But now she can see, Naruto. Boy, she might. Karabi. She spoke like her name. That is not the reason. Ah, I must be wrong, I'll sing a different song. Samui's in it for a. Samui said to Darui, "It looks good on my records." She told her to ignore the rambling Jinchuriki next to her and the rapping one in front of her. "And perhaps I have some unfinished business, yes. But don't worry, it will all be cool." Thus, the four distinguished Kumo.nin set out for Konoha. Ao scowled at the note in his hands. Yagura's squad has set up living quarters in Yukigakure. They meet up with Jiraiya. Sama's squad is there, also stationed there at times. Oh, I read wrong. Yagura never was very talented in writing reports. Jiraiya. Sama works separately again. Apparently, it is Naruto. Sans squad. That is old news, ow. The squad had always been Naruto's. I assume Jiraiya was always a safety measure because all of Naruto's subordinates aren't Konoha.nin from origin. And also, because Naruto is the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. The Mizukage stated the truth. It's a very peculiar squad with 3 Jinchuriki. 3 years ago, the war against the Sanbi was lost before it began. Mei could still feel the unadulterated strength in the air from that day. That day, something happened that made her bones tremble. She was unable to identify it for the life of her. Undoubtedly, it was not the Sanbi. It was just too bad that in less than a minute, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Naruto, and Gaara had all rushed towards the Sanbi, intercepted it at sea, and dealt with it. She could not see what had been done by whom, but she could see one thing. The contract for the birds of prey belonged to Naruto. That implied that the boy would eventually develop into a very strong shinobi. Yagura states here in the letter that Naruto.san has requested his presence in Konoha within the month. Hey, he says he won't travel to Konoha without your permission, Mizukage, Sama. Mei leaned on her desk and placed both of her hands under her chin. Send a letter to Hokage. Dono, we're going to Konoha, too, ow. Tell Chaojiura we leave in a week and tell Yagura the same in a letter. Tell him he must take his entire squad with him. The Akatsuki will not have him. Understood, Mizukage. Sama. Facing Kage Henge no Jutsu is always so weird. He was amused, too, as he watched his opponent mutter indifference. It helps to disorient the opponent. Especially if you're transformed into someone familiar to your opponent. Jiraiya was facing Tsunade and Orochimaru, 2 of Naruto's Kage Henge, and all he could do was frown. Flapping his wrist, Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina stood smiling at the Toad Sage, saying, "Of course, I can also do this." Jiraiya seemed unfazed to see Minato and Kushina in this way, but it actually kind of hurt to see them. It's bothersome because you know exactly what type of chakra presence you need to create thanks to your Sage mode. You know, Naruto. The blonde saw Jiraiya's serious expression and knew instantly what was going to happen. I know, Jiraiya. Sama. The enemy might very well have revived my mother. I'll be ready for that. The enemy might just do me a favor. Thinking of his mother being used in such a way infuriated Naruto, who unclenched his fists. My sealing skills will save her. Jiraiya gave up on the conversation and took a stand. Okay, kid. Now, let's do this. Naruto grinned broadly as he thought about his godfather. Yeah, let's go, god pervert. As Naruto, Kushino, Minato, Orochimaru, and Tsunade advanced toward him, Jiraiya retreated. Kaden, Karyu Enden. Gaara and Fu were eating lunch a short distance away, watching Jiraiya and Naruto spar. As Jiraiya threw a tremendous stream of fire at Naruto's advanced transformations, Gaara whispered, "They always exaggerate. But it makes me want to crush them both with excessive sand, too." Fu shot up, "Then let's go, let's sneak up on them while I blind them." Gaara gave a non-committal nod and continued to stare. Excellent. He had already covered miles on foot, and it felt like the journey would never end, turn after turn, corridor after corridor. He'd taken the time to do some mapping, and the boss would not mind. He was pretty sure everyone else was doing the same thing after telling them all what he was doing and getting no pushback. Chakra mapping and infiltration jutsu. An extremely difficult technique carried out remotely. The only thing that separated it from the Busaken, Oitsumeru Jutsu was that the chakra was absent from the person and instead was found in the walls, ceilings, and floors. At the moment, Naruto had nearly 100 Fuin Bunshin scuttling around the Konohagakure operations. Beneath the leaf appeared to be a whole fortress. You've grown from the incompetent brat you used to be. I find myself somewhat pleased with your growth. In one of the dimly lit hallways of Uzumaki Naruto's headquarters beneath Konoha, Shimura Danzo stood in front of him. This served as the headquarters for his Root Anbu division. The grizzled old man had tracked down the fair-haired Junin and requested a private meeting. Naruto looked at the one-eyed shinobi in front of him, his head cocked to one side. Danzo. Sama, I aim only for the survival of Konoha. I've heard stories about you, Danzo. Sama, good and bad. But none have truly offended or upset me. You've handled for the greater good, for Konoha. Danzo gripped his cane tighter and narrowed his one visible eye. Indeed. I have heard stories about you as well, Uzumaki. You know the Hiraishin and its advanced usage. You know Fuinjutsu on the same level as your parents. I've heard you hold 2 summon contracts, particularly the birds of prey. The blonde gave one head nod. That's all true. The Junin appeared indifferent to the elderly Warhawk's presence. Many had warned him to exercise caution around this man. However, he was fully aware of the man's potential for harm. He was capable of handling it. Most likely. Why have you called for me, Danzo? Sama. An enquiry, really? I've heard some disturbing news regarding you, and if all of it is true then, I want you to become part of my forces. Naruto attempted to read the man, but he was unable to do so. Root, huh? You don't seem surprised I know of the existence of Root. Danzo had his eye heavily trained on Naruto. Of course not, you've traveled with Jiraiya. While I despise the man's handle on things, he is without a doubt a talented information gatherer and a powerful shinobi. Is it true that you can wield nature chakra? Yes, Naruto affirmed. That's why I know a few things about you don't want others to know, Danzo. Sama. What? Danzo was not at all happy to hear this. Surely, you don't mean. The blonde Junin's eyes narrowed deeply. I do. Although I have no clue what it is in your right arm. Many things that continuously absorb your chakra, albeit in a slow rate, she said. Or why there's a very powerful foreign chakra running from your right hand, arm, shoulder to the right side of your chest. He briefly snapped his fingers. Chakra very similar, but a lot more powerful, to Yamato. Taiko's chakra. Danzo tightened his jaw. Naruto asked, giving Danzo a sly smile. Mokuton, right? You little shit. A boy like you wielding nature chakra like a plaything knows nothing. Don't jump to conclusions. Naruto didn't appear even slightly offended. He looked at the elderly man in front of him coolly and said, I'm not. And before you think you can do anything to me now, know that I'm just a cage bunshin, Danzo. Sama. I am never really there. But you misunderstand. I mean absolutely no harm. I am sure everything you did to yourself was also for Konoha. The elderly man took a few moments to gather himself. Danzo could not ignore the boy's potential. Hey, you're a true shinobi, boy. I like you. You're different from all the other shinobi working for Sarutobi. You actually think. The blonde quickly cast a sidelong glance. Danzo had taken off the bandage covering his right eye in a fit of rage and said, I am sure my former teammate shouldn't know about your Sharingan, Danzo. Sama. He went on, don't worry about me telling. I want you to know, Danzo. Sama, that I support what you do. You've given yourself shit your body can't handle. Shit that ultimately will wear your body down, but it gives you an edge should anything bad ever happen to Konoha. You've done all of that to yourself to protect Konoha. I can understand that. Naruto lowered his arms. Just like you, I will stop at nothing to protect Konoha. Danzo tapped his cane against the ground and said, enough of this, I want to discuss different matters. Uzumaki Naruto. Your name alone should tell others that you're a dangerous foe to them. But the name Uzumaki has slowly been losing its reputation. There are but a few left in the world. This time, Danzo cracked a smirk. You should know that there's another true Uzumaki on your team, Naruto. To Yuya? Danzo gave a head nod. Yes, the former Otto.Nin is an Uzumaki, but I doubt she knows this herself. I don't think Orochimaru would have informed her. I am keeping track on a few others. In fact, I have one true Uzumaki in my root division as well. She has an interesting skill, quite similar to your mother's. Who would have imagined? He said, shaking his head in shock. Hey, I never thought you would bring me here to tell me of my clan. I want Konoha to be the strongest, Uzumaki. I am not so sure Konoha is the strongest right now. Iwa and Kumo might just best us. A clan like the Uzumaki can make a world of difference. I therefore have a mission for you. The elderly man flung 3 scrolls at Naruto. Uzumaki Karen in Otogakure, Uzumaki Ryoko in Kawa no Kuni and Uzumaki Koji in Mori no Kuni. Danzo began. I'm not ordering you to do anything. But it would benefit Konoha greatly if those 3 could join our cause. They hold great potential. Naruto gave a snort. But then you want all of them implemented in your root division, right? This is also a way to keep me in check, should it be necessary. Danzo grinned. Hey. It took a pretty cunning kid to think that way. I am sure you know of Uzumaki Nagato, the leader of Omegakure. That upstart has the Rinnegan Dujutsu. I don't see him turning away from his country, so it seems he will have to die. He is a shinobi too powerful. The Uzumaki under my command is Uzumaki Kusari. That's not his real name. Danzo corrected casually, hers. And you're right, it isn't, it is her title. Just like your mother, she wields chakra chains. But hers cannot hold or grasp. They can only maim. Sighing, Naruto said, interesting. Look, thanks for the information, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. You have no hold over me, Danzo. Sama. But I do think what you're doing is not hurting Konoha. I won't move for you or against you. How about we just let each other be? Danzo wryly shook his head. This information didn't come easy. Naruto thought to himself, I would have eventually looked for it. But you're right, information usually doesn't come easy. I'll be on the lookout for Uzumaki, but I'm going to do it my way. I'll convince Tsunade, seeing as she is also partly Uzumaki. Danzo appeared to swallow another brief response at that point. He placed his hand on his chin instead. Do what you want, then. It seems you know more than I originally thought. His eyes hardened as he stared at Danzo. Danzo. Sama. If something is happening in the shadows that could hurt Konoha, and you can't handle it, please. Contact me, you can count on me. I will. The real Naruto was at home, sketching out the root division's entire map. Here, exercise caution. Zetsu is able to see everything. Nagato had issued new directives to the 2. To aid Deidara and Sasori in Otogakure. It seems that Nagato gave Sasori's request for new human puppets his approval. They had Otto in their sights. An additional mission was to eradicate the expanding nation since it was a pain in Akatsuki's side. However, Zetsu, Akatsuki's information scout, had revealed that Otto was home to numerous resurrected bodies of fabled shinobi from antiquity. It might not be an easy mission. Itachi was currently using lip movements to indicate to an observer what was happening. At the moment, Kisame and Itachi were surrounded by some of Naruto's Fuin Bunshin, and Uchiha Itachi was an ally of Uzumaki Naruto. The Fuin Bunshin was undetectable to both Kisame and his dependable sword Samahata. Naruto and Gaara had known about Itachi's true allegiance ever since the Uchiha had used Tsukiyomi on the blonde in the past. They meant to take full advantage of this. Itachi could always find the invisible clone because he nearly always had his Sharingan active, but he still needed to exercise caution. Naruto had to learn how to read lips as a result. Since Kisame was not incompetent in spotting abnormal activity, Itachi had to discreetly relay messages. Uchiha Madara is not our leader. I understand, but I did battle Madara in the future. I am aware of who your leader is already. Itachi knew that Naruto had received a visit from his future self, just like Jiraiya did. The situation was becoming more dire. I understand. Like Madara, he resists defeat easily. Lately, I've noticed that Akatsuki moves with hesitation. Nagato is the acting leader, and he has some concerns. Sometimes it took them 10 minutes to relay just 2 sentences because they had to be so cautious. They occasionally even had to say things again. While paying close attention, Kisame occasionally engaged Itachi in conversation. He seemed very cold, so I didn't think our fight would affect him. It's been a while since I felt the presence of another Akatsuki member. You have witnessed her. I am referring to Konan. She's also one of Jiraiya's former apprentices, correct? I'll keep an eye out for it. Take caution, she is quite powerful. And just like that, Fuin Bunshin from Naruto disappeared. As Itachi and Kisame started walking again, there was absolutely no change in his demeanor or gait. Itachi-san, you seem quieter than usual. Are you brooding? The man with a shark's head snapped his fingers. Or are you always brooding? Itachi, as usual, paid him no mind. Interesting. Both the Mizukage and Raikage are headed to Konoha? One would wonder. One voice said, they have powerful guards, and half our organization is active in Otogakure. Nagato looked at Obito and Zetsu and said, maybe I should take one out of the equation? With even one out, we'll have an even greater advantage. Here, Obito glared at Nagato, saying, "No, something tells me this is a setup. Besides, you should be focusing on finding your other half, Conan. Something doesn't add up." "What are you saying, Obito?" Despite his strength, he wasn't sure he could defeat Nagato and escape unharmed. Healing Nagato's mobility had been a mistake in some ways. Even though Nagato was already his most formidable soldier when he was immobile, he might now be even more formidable if he could use his legs again. But his control over Kamui was so strong that he could always scatter Nagato into a different dimension in small pieces. No, in order to deal with the other Uzumaki, he still needed this one. Uzumaki Naruto's network of clones had made him too elusive. Zetsu was no longer even able to find the real one. Zetsu will observe from within Konoha what exactly the point of this meeting is. We will not move until we know more. Accepting that Akatsuki was now in charge of Sunagakure, Obito turned away from Zetsu and Nagato to focus on the city. "I hate to admit this, but Orochimaru is more important. He has something that belongs to me. We need to deal with the snake first." Nagato nearly demanded, "Then let me deal with him. Who knows, Conan has been turned into one of his pawns." "I hardly doubt that, although it might not be such a bad idea sending you into Bakitachi and Kisame up. It seems Otto has quite the troublesome individuals." Zetsu's white half said, "Very true. I have spotted Ginkaku and Kinkaku, and today we have seen the yellow flash and the white fang." At that, Obito actually turned to face Zetsu. He balled his fists and said, "The yellow flash, you are sure? Then it has just become our priority to crush Otogakure. I will be coming with you to bring it to the ground, Nagato." How annoying. It was to be expected. That brat knows his Fuinjutsu, after all. A portion of Zetsu's head was protruding from the rooftop of a residential building near the Hokage Tower. His instructions were to sneak into the tower and listen in on the current meeting. There must be an important conversation going on between the Mizukage, Raikage, and Hokage and their closest allies. Regretfully, Naruto had sound and time space barriers installed to keep them all safe. Within the barrier A, the Raikage sat at a huge table with his arms crossed over each other, but he appeared neither bored nor irritated. Typically, all of the clan heads would gather in the room they were in for a crucial meeting. It was followed by his entourage: Samui, Kurabi, Darui, and Yugito. Terumi Mei leaned her face in the palms of her hands, her elbows resting on the table. This meeting piqued her interest as well. Yagura, Zabuza, Utakata, and Ao stood behind her. Given that Konoha now had 3 Jinchuriki, Tsunade had more people. Sabaku no Gara, Tenzo, Uzumaki Naruto, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Nara Shikaku. Tsunade nearly snorted out as she glared at Naruto. "Well, I know why the brat has called all of you here, but I think it's best he explains it himself. Perhaps it will make sense to me if I hear it again. You have everyone's attention." The blonde gave one quick coughing fit in his fist, then stood up straight and gave a nod to everyone in the room. "As you all know, I've studied Fuinjutsu for a long time, even before I met Jiraiya Sama. It took me a while, but I can now state with certainty that I have surpassed Jiraiya Sama in the art of Fuinjutsu." Jiraiya was looked to by most heads in the room for confirmation, and she gave a brief, uncomplicated nod. "I've been working on something big. We all know that the Akatsuki is after all the Jinchuriki, right? If we die, the Biju will simply reform and the Akatsuki can still accomplish what they want, even if it might take a few years more. I propose a more stable solution." "Spit it out, Naruto. You're being annoying," he exclaimed, smirking at the blonde while snapping his right hand's fingers. He sent Tsunade a deep look, saying, "I am probably the hardest to catch, and that's mainly because I know Hiraishin no Jutsu and can mostly always escape. The only situation where I wouldn't be able to is if the Akatsuki could somehow create a time space barrier around me. And even then, they still would have a hard time." Here, Mei really leaned forward a little bit more. "Are you proposing what I think you are proposing?" "Maybe," Naruto smiled at the woman with auburn hair. "Distribution. A way to thwart the Akatsuki's plans indefinitely. But for this, a simple alliance like the one we have would not really be enough." "Who?" A gave Kurabi a slap across the face. "Shut up, B. How bold." Yagura muttered. "I didn't think there would ever be a shinobi like you, Uzumaki Naruto. Are you sure about this?" The blonde closed his eyes. "This is just part of the solution. The man in charge of Akatsuki also knows advanced time space ninjutsu. Next to what Konoha is offering here, I would like your help with something first." Here, Tsunade cut off Naruto with a sharp cough, but she didn't allow Naruto to say anything. You seem to have skipped something. We need compensation for what we are about to do. I assume you're very eager, so what do you have to offer? A laughed at the fabled better. Konoha is as cunning as ever, but with an offer like this, I would offer Rantan. Darui exclaimed, gasping in disbelief as he fixed his leader. Mei nodded in agreement while cocking her head in his direction. For something like this, we have to go in big as well. Konoha has proven itself worthy for this. I would like to offer boil release, as it is more likely that shinobi could control this element rather than the lava element I also control. Tsunade muttered, Rantan and Fushokan, huh? Her doubts about element combination ninjutsu's ability to match the fabled Hiraishin persisted. She began, the Hiraishin is a very powerful fuinjutsu. Tsunade. Sama, I don't think it's nice to negotiate like this. Naruto sighed. I gave a light fist to the table, saying, it's fine, Naruto. Nothing in this world is free, but not too hard, you're too soft. With a single hand seal, the slug sage said, indeed, and forms materialized beneath the Mizukage and Raikage's faces. You'll need to sign these. Read carefully, as this concerns our alliance greatly. You must be crazy. Before Tsunade could respond, Naruto said, I came up with it. And I don't think it's crazy. We're in an alliance. But an alliance is too weak of a link between us for what we want to accomplish. So, I came up with this. It looks easy on paper, Naruto-san. But surely you realize that the majority of the shinobi populace would fall into chaos at this. The Mizukage said lightly, it is idealistic and naive. Most, if not all of my shinobi, fight for Kiri and for Kiri alone. Likewise, mine for Kumo. Both Kage remained composed in spite of the circumstances. Tsunade came to the realization that Mei and A both held a great deal of respect for Naruto, which prevented them from completely dismissing the concept. The concerned blonde sighed at their responses. I know, but all of that is an instant fusion, you know? I want to make Konoha, Kiri and Kumo one great shinobi nation. To be able to do so, we need time and patience. But most of all, we need a reason. And this is perfect. Let our problems unite us. Let the growing thread of the Akatsuki and Otogakure motivate us. We'll turn our greatest enemies into our springboard. As it stands now, there's still some bad blood between all three of our countries. You want to do this, but I am pretty sure the daimyo wouldn't stand for this either. They'll lose whatever power they have. I am also pretty sure you haven't even informed them of any of this. A grumbled with a small grin. True. But they don't need to know something that might or might not happen in 10 years or whatever. Naruto spoke casually. But I want you to agree with this. See the possibility and the potential. This might be a first step to genuine peace. Hey. A laughed. Without a doubt, he was the most obstinate man at the table. Everyone was therefore shocked by how quickly he signed the documents that were in front of him. He turned to face Tsunade, saying, you have proven yourself enough in past handlings, Uzumaki Naruto. You had better make him Hokage, Tsunade. He's already doing the big things for you. Mei was still taken aback by his ease of signing the documents. She looked at her own again, still not sure about anything. I am not sure of what to do. Clearly, there is a past between Edono and Naruto-san. But there is only little between Kirigakure and Konohagakure. Zabuza snorted behind her. Please, Mei. Sama, I'll take permission to speak. As all his actions are in the name of his village, I think Konoha has done a lot for Kirigakure. Naruto saved me, Haku, Yagura and Kirigakure. Mei narrowed her eyes at Naruto and said, be that as it may. I can't easily sign this just because of one boy. Although I must admit, you're quite the cunning one, underneath the supposed naivety. With his eyes closed, Naruto smiled and cocked his head slightly to one side. He bowed and said, I aim to please, Mizukage. Sama. In all honesty, the papers don't need to be signed right now. I am surprised Sama did it now, actually. The distribution of the Hiraishin is for Jinchuriki only and I'll teach it to each personally. But this won't happen anytime soon. It seems we got a bit sidetracked. I called you all here for an entirely different reason. They were all absorbed in Naruto. I am going to perform the Genryu Q fusion on myself and I need all the protection I can get. I will be extremely weakened after this jutsu. Akatsuki's leader might just be anticipating this move and I don't want to leave the Akatsuki in your hands should I fall. There was a brief moment of quiet in the room before it banged on the table. You have my protection, brat. Let that fool come, I'll destroy him. Mei gave a quick nod of her head. You have my word, I will also be there to protect you. Naruto bowed and smiled sincere at each of them. He stood up, looking serious, and said, "Thank you. With that settled, I will now explain to you what will happen." Holding some forms under his arms, Nara Shikaku walked beside Tsunade and declared, "A Jinchuriki will die if the Biju is extracted. There have been no exceptions." They were going to the office of the Hokage. He looked at Tsunade and said, "I wonder why Naruto is so confident that he'll survive the Genryukyu fusion. The kid is still young, but he doesn't act as such. How old is he now?" 16. His entire squad is around that age. You should warn him, Tsunade. Sama. The shadow user was met with a raised eyebrow by the fabled medic. And what for? He's rushing things, even if I don't know what he really wants to accomplish. He's hurling himself and many others with him into something that might change the entire shinobi world. A boy aged 16. Is Jiraiya Sama truly supporting him in this? Tsunade shook her head slowly after giving Shikaku's words some thought. There are things you don't know. It's not always there. Shikaku shook his head. He smiled at Tsunade's curious glance, saying, "Basics still remain basics, no matter where. I know one thing, though, and it is quite obvious because of his sheer confidence. He's strong, isn't he? Since Asama respects him so much, it only further proves my statement. A man like him wouldn't readily agree to such an absurd plan as Naruto has laid out. It brings me to an obvious conclusion." Tsunade asked quietly as she opened her office door, "Well?" He narrowed his eyes and began to attempt to read Tsunade's expression. "It makes me believe that Naruto has proven to be a true threat to Kumogakure. Wants to ensure Naruto, and in turn Konoha, won't become his enemy. It even makes me suspect that he is already stronger than the Raikage." But she gave him a smug smile. "Naruto is a Junin, Shikaku." With a quick counter, he said, "And a Jinchuriki." Naruto burst into the office, interrupting both of them. The Godem exclaimed, "Naruto, what have I told you about suddenly appearing out of nowhere, right away?" The blonde quickly bowed before turning to face Tsunade and Shikaku. "Oh, apologies. But you are speaking of delicate things. Boss still has the barriers set up, but they'll disappear soon. Please refrain from saying more." He then gave Tsunade a wink. "Don't hit me, I'm just a Kage Bunshin." This indicates that a Fuin Bunshin trailed behind us and produced a Kage Bunshin in my workspace. This brat is becoming more cunning and skilled. Tsunade was not amused by this. "Naruto, from now on, you are not allowed to have any Fuin Bunshin in my office." Here, Naruto's expression genuinely hardened. "It is for the protection of you, Godem Hokage, Sama." "No, it isn't. I have Anbu guards here who—" The Kage Bunshin apologized and bowed once more. "A Kage Bunshin knocked them out before you entered the office. They might have overheard your conversation." Shikaku became even more suspicious. He growled a little and said, "Knocking out 2 elite Anbu in total silence. In front of me and the Hokage. And as a shadow clone. He is a shinobi of great danger." Tsunade began, "Naruto, this is your first warning. I am Hokage and you will listen to Konoha's leader." "Hokage. Sama, I understand." He gave a single bow before disappearing. How recognizable. Shikaku trembled once at the idea. However, he refrained from resuming their conversation because Naruto was making a valid point. "Are you the real one?" The shadow clone leapt back to dodge a sharp sword slash and exclaimed, "No, I'm just a Kage Bunshin. I don't know we." "Hey, what's the big idea, prick?" Sasuke peered curiously at the clone. The Uchiha then turned his back on the clone and pointed at a nearby Fuin Bunshin, saying, "Even his Kage Bunshin are a pain to deal with, being able to evade my sneak attack like that. You. Where is the real Naruto?" When Uchiha Sasuke pointed his sword at what appeared to be an empty space, any onlooker would have looked absolutely shocked. But he could see invisible clones with his Sharingan. The shadow clone behind Sasuke exclaimed, "Look, we don't know." With exasperation. Not being able to see Fuin Bunshin, this specific Kage Bunshin said, "You look like an idiot, you know." The clone grinned and made the hand seal for dispelling, saying, "But I'll dispel to let him know you're looking for him. He'll find you. Because I've already marked practically everyone in Konoha with the Hiraishin summon seal." With a snort, Sasuke turned to leave and returned his sword to its sheath. "I was just with him in a meeting." As Kakashi suddenly materialized behind him in mid-step, Sasuke did not even pause to reply. Naturally, Kakashi was accustomed to this. The copy.nin mused aloud, "He's the same, but not really. But I should warn you, Sasuke. I am quite sure he has surpassed me." At this, The Uchiha actually turned and stopped. However, his expression was not impressed. So, I believe I have, too, Kakashi. After a while, the imposter laughed. I hardly think so, Sasuke-chan. Don't call me that. Sasuke scowled at his former instructor, since he will find you anyway. How about we go for a spar? Seeing him again made me a bit unfit. It was very weird. Kakashi never showed much emotion. Was the senior ninja having fun? He said, in all seriousness, fine. I'll show you how much I've surpassed you then. You'll be surprised. Sasuke. Otogakure had grown to be a very large city, because of the Edo Tensei's use. The greatest censor.nin to have ever lived were present, making infiltration difficult. Time. Space ninjutsu was the only method available, and not many shinobi could execute it. Or with an abundance of diversions. It's okay, I've just used the disposable ones, Sasori said, stumbling ahead while Deidara trailed closely behind. The blonde was glaring at him, as if to say, you just threw away many of your puppets. The straw hat on his head was slightly adjusted, and he said, whatever you say, Sasori. Dana. I don't like this, though. These zombies are somewhat immune to my art. Hiriko, Sasori's most frequently used puppet, uttered the muffled words, it is such a shame you have no restriction jutsu, Deidara. Your explosions are easy to escape from, after all. HN. What would happen if I erase every single molecule they're made of? What would happen if I use C4? It will only be a temporarily solution. You'll destroy the body used for the resurrection, but not the resurrection itself. Orochimaru will simply resummon it with another sacrifice. I'd use the miniature version for the annoying ones. I don't like wasting time, after all. He then stopped and ceased to move forward. Interesting. Did you use my distraction or did you get in another way? Itachi calmly replied as he and Kisame appeared next to the talking pair. Genjutsu. Nagato is on his way as well. We're to destroy most of Otogakure. Deidara exclaimed with delight. Ha. So that means I can kill Orochimaru? I've been waiting a long time to kill that annoying snake. Sasori began to move again, saying, he might be out of your league, Deidara. I will kill him myself. We'll see who finishes the coward in the end, Sasori. Dana. Kisame laughed, as lively as ever. This will be fun, I've also been itching to do some shaving. Deidara called out to a clay bird, probably announcing to all the nearby censor.nin, we should spread out and cause mayhem all around. He yelled, let's do this, as he took to the skies. With an insane smile on his face, Kisame began to walk forward as Itachi had disappeared. Unsummoning Hiriko, Sasori moved with his actual body. Silently, he followed Kisame, figuring there wouldn't be much of an advantage to Deidara's plan in a foreign village. How peculiar. Every Edo Tensei.nin in the vicinity of Otogakure had vanished. His censor.nin are all taken care of. It seems they're making a major move, Orochimaru, Sama. It isn't surprising. Amassing all these legendary shinobi is a major threat for them. It is unfortunate they have shinobi capable of dealing with our army. He laughed. If we move against them now, we'll lose everything. They've come prepared. I think it's best we save the majority of what we have and retreat. I agree, Orochimaru. Sama. It seems Uchiha Obito and Uzumaki Nagato have also come. We stand little chance against those two. Upon hearing about those two, Orochimaru growled. They were both in a hideout. I should summon Madara, but I suspect even that would work in their favor. Kabuto was sitting in front of what appeared to be a chessboard, and Orochimaru was positioned thoughtfully above him. We should cover our escape and amass further in a different location. Use the living nin as a distraction, they're but rabble. Kabuto gave a nod of his head and executed a single-hand gesture. Akatsuki is a true nuisance. We should really deal with them. They will expand if Otogakure falls. They wouldn't dare take over Otogakure. They would always have to watch their backs if they squander here. I have created these lands. I can make the lands swallow them whole whenever I feel the need. Kabuto observed Orochimaru execute the summoning jutsu with a critical eye. That won't be enough. They have their orders. We'll vanish for now. We cannot afford to lose our precious pieces. What about some of your subjects? It might fool them. Orochimaru thought about it while he and Kabuto started to head out. The snake sage nodded once and sent out a chakra flare for his most important subordinates. It'll fool them, but it also means I have a few real clones of myself walking around. All of them as smart as I. About 20 shinobi were approaching them from the other side as Kabuto eyed the exit. The majority of their names escaped his memory, but he was aware of Suigetsu, Karen, and Jugo. Orochimaru's voice came. Congratulations on lasting this long. All of you will come with me. Though Orochimaru had orchestrated it, the ground gave way beneath them. They were going to hide underground. There were still some people in Otogakure carrying Orochimaru's cursed seal, and Kabuto couldn't help but laugh heartily as he saw Orochimaru execute a certain hand seal. Inseki Juin Kai. The snake. Like man used chakra to suppress some of the cursed seal carriers he had with him as they descended. Unlucky were the others who were not close to him. A handful of bearers of the cursed seal staggered as Orochimaru slithered out of them while Akatsuki was destroying Nin left and right. If the Orochimaru that emerged from them had not chosen to absorb all of their life energy, they would still be alive today. Beneath, the real Orochimaru growled a little. That was not how he liked to give up his backup plans. To make up for the losses, he would soon need to bestow the curse seal on new people. The fact that he had been one of those fallback options himself was never mentioned or considered, given that the first Orochimaru was slain during the sound invasion in Konoha. It is unfortunate. It is unlikely your clones will survive, but it might mean they think they have actually defeated you. Unlikely. Seeing that many genuine clones of me pop out like that, they would be extra cautious, but rest assured. I will make Akatsuki pay for making this move. Oh. When Obito and Nagato appeared, Orochimaru and Kabuto were immediately alerted. These two are too much for us, Kabuto said, getting tense even. He glanced at the few underlings they had brought along and said, we need to use them to flee. Stepping forward, Obito calmly said, the other yous out there, they are nothing. They only have the chakra capacity of the wielder of that cursed seal. Even with your cunning, they will all die. Who would have thought that the great Orochimaru would be scared of a Konoha Chunin? Pulling off his mask, Obito heard the snake sage growl. Uchiha Obito, I already knew it was you. And I know all about Madara as well. We hold your trump card in our possession, that is why you came, isn't it? Yes. But Otogakure has been too much of a pain lately. We will deal with you accordingly. There was enough space for them to fight in their underground base, but who would strike first? Shinra Tensai. Obito turned intangible and Orochimaru and Kabuto were blasted backward. Regretfully, Orochimaru killed or rendered unconscious every one of his subordinates. Aside from Suigetsu, who prudently chose to stay in a liquid state following Nagato's release of the powerful gravitational force. Both Kabuto and Orochimaru's bodies stayed motionless. Obito smirked and tipped his head, saying, don't bother. I have a barrier set up 100 meters round. You can't escape with such a weak Kawarimi. Even if you get past this barrier, we have another one set up. Around the entirety of Otogakure, you will all die here. Kabuto and Orochimaru turned to mud, while the real ones rose up from the earth. Orochimaru smiled and braced himself for battle. So, the two of you can't escape from here? You will regret this, Obito-kun. With a sigh, Nagato took a step forward without striking a pose. Above all, he did not view Kabuto or Orochimaru as threats, but rather with icy indifference. Your arrogance is very sad, Orochimaru-san. They have gone missing. Naruto had asked for all the shinobi from Konoha to be present, and Tsunade had gathered them all. They were still in Fire Country, but slightly outside of Konoha. They all regarded this area, surrounded by low mountains and boulders, as safe. Already, Jiraiya had established a formidable double barrier. The first barrier only alerted him when someone approached. It did not actually stop anything. Anyone would be stopped by the second because it was the Shishi engine. On their own, only true chakra freaks like Jinchuriki or Jiraiya could pull that off. Many shinobi were present in anticipation of what Naruto was about to do. Senju Tsunade, Jiraiya, Hitaki Kakashi, Tenzo, Shizune, Gaara, Kankuro, Tamari, Dosu, Tayuya, and Fu were among those from Konoha. Karabi, Yugito, Samui, and Darui were from Kumo. From Kiri, Momochi Zabuza, Yagura, Terumi Mei, Ao, and Utakata. You think they got to them? Jiraiya gave Naruto a nod. Yeah, I would assume so. Han and Roshi are very valuable to Iwa. There's no way they would allow those two to just go missing. Even Roshi, who's known to be a wanderer, was always under close surveillance. Tsunade put her hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, it's too bad Iwa and Konoha haven't been on good terms lately, otherwise we could have prevented that from happening. She had gotten to know Naruto a little better ever since she discovered his secrets. You couldn't have done anything to have prevented it, Naruto. With clenched fists, the blonde said, they have two of us. They now had 7 Jinchuriki among them with him. Akatsuki would never harm his friends in any way. He turned to the small gathering in front of him and said, "We will avenge them." He placed a hand on his stomach and said, "Listen up. You will have far less to worry about here than you think. Kurama and I have struck a deal. He won't be attacking you when he's released, so don't go freaking out and start throwing kunai and stuff. I will be unconscious afterwards, though, but I won't die. Kurama has made sure of that." Here he looked at Tsunade. He was referring to the newly acquired jutsu that Tsunade had previously used to save Shizune when he said, "I will be severely weakened and completely out of chakra. I think using your newly acquired jutsu would be recommended here. It'll take me a few days to recover from this. I may be an Uzumaki, but my body is used to the healing properties of a Jinchuriki. Please," he made a bow to everyone present. Everyone here would naturally keep their mouths shut about what was going on here. "Watch over me. The Akatsuki might get wind of me being hospitalized, but they won't learn of the fact that Kurama is no longer sealed within me. But you'll get weaker if the Kyuubi is no longer inside of you, right?" Naruto smiled at his opponent, who had posed the query, "You wish, Sasuke." Hitaki Tsukumo. Although Han was partially controlled by Obito's Sharingan Eye, much like he had previously controlled the Yondaime Mizuka Jigura, Han remained Han. Why is a Konoha shinobi still alive in front of me? It was exactly the same for the White Fang. He was still the same person even in Edo Tensei form. Not necessarily alive, if you'd notice. With a quick side glance, Han saw that his opponent was relentlessly pursuing him, regardless of where he fled, leaving him with little time to speak. A skilled Raiden user. Han muttered, staring at the swift first Raikage. And you, the White Fang, also specialize in Raiden. In the space of a few seconds, Sakuma threw 2 lightning jutsu at the Jinchuriki, who shunshined to the left and right by a few inches. The Hitaki smiled, "Fuden, as well. You didn't dodge that entirely, Han-san." Indeed, Tsukumo's jutsu managed to rip off Han's right arm's armor without actually hurting him. Gasu Shidzu. Han's whole body erupted in smoke, vanishing into thin vapor trails surrounding Tsukumo. His voice could be heard surrounding Kakashi's father a few moments later, saying, "Be careful, White Fang. You might just die." Tsukumo frowned and cocked his head, saying, "Again, I already am. Perhaps you should know that I cannot die, Han-san. My strategy will include the fact." Both of them heard the explosions and eruptions from the battle between the Shodem Raikage and Roshi, as Han's voice reverberated throughout the clearing. "It is true this jutsu usually cuts off your oxygen, but I will use it differently, seeing as you have no need to breathe." Tsukumo nodded, happy that his message was understood. He didn't want to give up too soon in this fight. He was the kind of shinobi who always knew his opponent's strategy and took advantage of it, thinking, "Good, a restriction jutsu might just work." Suiten, Taiju Ninjin Bakuden. As he unleashed a barrage of water bullets from his mouth all around him, Kisame knelt slightly. Samahata was rapidly providing him with additional chakra. Kisame laughed as Sasori came up behind him, saying, "Interesting jutsu. Deidara might just get jealous. He is the jealous type, after all." The man who resembled a shark performed a very macabre jutsu. Although a significant amount of chakra was required, the outcomes were rewarding. Kisame could turn people into walking human water bombs by injecting some of his chakra into them with water. Infused chakra bullets. Naturally, it had to fulfill certain conditions, such as the opponent having a low chakra presence, akin to that of a Chunin. But in a hard battle, even the most formidable adversaries may succumb to Chunin-level chakra presence when faced with hardship. Currently, the majority of their opponents were Chunin. As shinobi all around them continued to burst into bloody showers, Sasori walked past the Shark Man and said, "I don't see why you would use such an obvious kinjutsu against these incompetent fools." The puppeteer pointed both of his palms at a small scroll that floated in front of him and spat it out. Kisame smiled as the enormous wave of fire annihilated any last resistance in front of him. Food and chakra had caused the scroll to explode outward, igniting the fire. But Sasori's puppet face prevented any expression of satisfaction. "Of course, you have the chakra needed for it. I prefer to use no chakra at all." They both realized that they were a good match. Uchiha Obito peered down at Orochimaru's lifeless body. Even though it consumed a significant portion of his chakra, he didn't feel like playing around with someone as cunning as Orochimaru. All he did was send different parts of his body to locations he didn't care for using Kamui. The Uchiha were certain that at least one Orochimaru remained alive despite Orochimaru's complete defeat. It was really painful to deal with those curse seals that contained his life energy. "Zetsu, try to find out if there are any other doppelgangers of this snake vermin around. He needs to be disposed of, he knows too much. Its head appeared near Obito's sandals. Of course. Most of them are dead already, courtesy of Hidan and Kakuzu. Those two were late, but at least they're useful. Hidan's got a lot of people under his control at the moment. Zetsu laughed. He's really having fun. I'm positive. Obito knelt down and examined Orochimaru's remaining parts. His left side of the torso and half of his face. Yes, a right foot was still laying around. He used a small Kaiden jutsu to burn everything. Deidara was above them, hurling bombs everywhere, and someone asked, what about Itachi? Not too long after, Akatsuki would rule over Otogakure. What about me? When Obito looked back, he saw Itachi appear behind him as a few crows. The younger Uchiha continued to make Obito very nervous, as sneaky as ever, Itachi-kun. Even though Itachi was a member of Akatsuki, he might still pose the greatest threat to him. I trust you've done the necessary things? Here Itachi gave Obito Orochimaru's ring, which he called the ring. That also meant that everything organic had been destroyed. The underground has been completely destroyed. All the tunnels are no more. All experiments are destroyed. Otogakure, all of it, will fall in 1 hour. If Itachi's Shoraizu was already able to see that far ahead, then his eyes were growing stronger and stronger. Even Obito was unaware of the special methods used to obtain this Dujutsu. Losses? The Jinchuriki Han. We'll have to intervene within 10 minutes if we are to keep him with us. He is fighting the White Fang. Hey. The White Fang. Obito muttered as the three started to lumber in the direction of the sounds of combat. Obito's eyes grew stern as he recalled previous incidents. Let's deal with him. The fact that his opponent had resisted his attack impressed him a little. He would need to exert more effort. There were two damaged former Jinchurikis standing in front of Kabuto. Kinkaku. It seems we are facing an Uzumaki. With a somber expression, his sibling nodded his head. I hate fighting Uzumaki. They always know more about our weapons than we do. As Kabuto was gathering himself up, he was taken aback by the comment. In their chakra cloak form, the twins had carried out the attack on his behalf. However, despite that defense, Nagato's attack still struck him. The red-haired Uzumaki casually walked forward and said, Kinkaku and Ginkaku. I will be taking that vile chakra inside of you. He was a very powerful man. Usually, since they were stronger than their opponents, they would play around and joke around, but this time, they were both very serious. It is improper to play around with Uzumaki people. Brother, I think we should. Shinra Tensai. Nagato was no longer dependent on his body to activate the gravitational force. Instead, he could now select the center on his own. The center of it this time was the little area between Ginkaku, Kinkaku, and Kabuto. Now that the three had split apart, Ginkaku and Kinkaku were already beginning to regenerate, while Kabuto stayed down. Hovering forward, Nagato aimed his left hand at Ginkaku and his right at Kinkaku, saying, You have no chance here, surrender. The sudden black rods that shot out of Nagato's sleeves were avoided by both. He had on the traditional Akatsuki cloak. Nagato saw the Benihasago and narrowed his eyes. The gourd that, should he utter the words he spoke most frequently, would be able to take his soul. But he was no fool. He was well aware of the words he should avoid using moving forward. It indicated that he was briefly down one jutsu. Ultimately, the terms that he utilized the most were Shinra Tensai. Or God, perhaps. The wielder of Rinnegan shook his head at the futility of it all. It was just irrelevant. Banshu Tenon. The legendary weapons that Kinkaku and Ginkaku were wielding also vanished from their hands and into Nagato's in the same swift motion. There's no need for these. He prepared to strike again after dispatching every one of them with a minor Shinra Tensai. Do you see the futility now? Kabuto, meanwhile, had regained his balance. He had to flee in the middle of the fight since he was clearly out of his league here. Thus, Obito and Orochimaru managed to get past the barrier enclosing this area. Madden Ninjutsu. He executed the Edo Tensai in a flash, but without revealing the personality of the summoned. As Ginkaku and Kinkaku kept amused, looking Nagato somewhat occupied, Kabuto turned his attention to his recently summoned undead subordinate. Take me as far as possible from this place. Namikaze Minato, who had no personality assigned to him, cocked his head slightly, attempting to detect the Hiraishin Kanai that was the furthest from the location. Taro no Kokima, he muttered. It should be far enough, the island of Taro, the glasses. Wearing Nin said, pushing them up. Kabuto's eyes widened as Nagato allowed Kinkaku and Ginkaku's bodies to collapse into a tiny ball of trash, saying, Naya Tensai. Quick. As the Yondaime and Kabuto disappeared using Hiraishin, the Uzumaki growled. Sounds from behind him informed him that Ginkaku and Kinkaku had begun to regenerate. Annoying fly. He made a motion with his hands and spoke. Kuyaku Tensai. Nagato dropped his head, realizing that the two Jinchuriki were now imprisoned in a chakra barrier akin to the water prison technique. That slimy little fool actually got away from me. I can't sense him anywhere close. The Uchiha appeared by using Kamui and approached the Uzumaki from behind, saying, he summoned Minato. Sensei. Very smart of him. Glancing around, he declared, the bigger threat has been dealt with. Otogakure is ours. Ginkaku and Kinkaku were floating in a chakra bubble in midair. There were still a few of Orochimaru's subordinates in the vicinity. The real leader of Akatsuki smiled at the two Jinchuriki. Let's add to our army with these failures around us. Because little chakra was all over Suigetsu's body, he was actually hiding quite well in the midst of the chaos. Not even Nagato, with his Rinnegan, could see him clearly. Kabuto has two versions of the Edo Tensai. I think I'll be hunting for him for a while. He mentioned the island of Taro. Doubt consumed him as Obito activated his teleportation technique. Don't bother. I think I'll send Itachi after him. He has a jutsu suited for a mad fool like Kabuto. This was far too simple. I hope we killed you all, Orochimaru. That was rather disappointing. He had lost a great deal of his puppets in this battle, and he had even expended some of the meager remaining chakra in his body, but he still supported his friend. Taking something from a coward was not a challenge. It was not Kisame who asked, is there anyone left? But rather a newcomer who had just approached them. The third man sat down on a boulder and opened a small duffel bag, saying, no one who matters. He had entrapped quite a few Edo Tensai shinobi, but it would be unlikely that those carried any money on them. I took a lot of wallets. Hopefully these losers had money where they lacked the strength. Nor did any of the opponents he had faced possess legendary items. With a laugh, the shark-shaped man among the three joined the masked Kakuzu. So, how many did you kill? Kakuzu began to consider it. I don't know, 30 maybe? But soon came to the conclusion that it didn't really matter. I'm not Hidan, Kisame. I don't care how many I kill, I care about how much money I've found. Sasori added as he called forth a puppet to sit on. Hidan's still playing with a few of his cursed victims. He's got 7 locked down. It's like a party. In the meantime, they could still hear explosions all around them. Deidara and Hidan sure like mayhem. The three of them watched Zetsu rise from the ground and declare, we're done. Orochimaru is dead. The others concurred with Kisame, saying, well, I'd hope so. I've killed him at least 3 times. Weird copies. Who did him in? Zetsu answered. Obito separated his body. Kisame laughed. There might still be some left to eat though. Itachi had seemingly materialized behind Kisame, saying, they've already returned. Nagato wants us to stay in Otogakure while he returns with Obito. He's sending Aim.Nin this way and Konan is to rule over Oto. We are her protection. For him, it had been an extremely strange week. Confined to bed. For a fortnight. There was always someone else waiting to greet him when he woke up. He usually expected his team to be there, and they were, but occasionally the strangest people showed up. He didn't anticipate Sasuke reading a book in his hospital room, but he did sort of expect Kakashi to be there, reading his book. For some reason, he was a little disappointed that it wasn't Icha. Even Hayate and Yugo paid him a visit, after he hadn't seen them in months. There were moments when the elderly man, Sarutobi Hiruzen, smoked his pipe in half. Hung out the window. Sakura paying close attention to Tsunade. Among them are Shikamaru, sleeping in the chair, his noisy crew, loud Ino, and naturally, the Choji who was eating. Along with the raucous Kiba and Shino, he occasionally woke up to the sight of a feverish-looking Hinata, whose long hair he thoroughly approved of. Naturally, there was Iruka, with whom he truly needed to make up. But he woke up alone today, and he decided to make the most of it. He looked into his own body while in sage mode. Senjutsu was superior to Tsunade and Sakura's medical devices in every way. Kurama appeared to have left a significant chakra presence behind in case he was slain. Somehow, he knew how far away Kurama was, and he wasn't pleased that his current state prevented him from covering that distance just yet. To show himself how much better his chakra control was now that he was free of the other entity inside of him, he casually formed Rasengan on his fingertips. You should really cut your hair. Sage mode was quickly disabled by the blonde, who then smiled at the newcomer. Good morning, Hokage. Sama. Tsunade, with some charts in her right hand, tipped her head in a playful manner. She flung the charts onto Naruto's stomach and said, "It's evening, actually. Your entire rhythm is screwed up, Naruto. You're in the clear. You're in perfect health, in all areas. You're the first person ever to survive an extraction of a Biju. There were a few dark days, though. I had your entire team, old and new, guarding you the first few days. I really was that out of it, but not anymore. Even if Akatsuki doesn't know yet, you're no longer one of their targets. You don't have to be on the move all the time anymore. You'll be staying in Konoha again, seeing as you are, one of its shinobi, after all." As for the plan, the former Jinchuriki said, "Yes, that was the plan anyway." He paused at Tsunade's glare, saying, "I can now continue my real training. That technique you created to save Shizune-san." He concluded overly politely, "Teach it to Sakura, please. Hokage. Sama?" The large-chested woman folded her arms and said, "You want her as your training partner then? She's become quite the busy medic.nin, you know. But I don't think she'll mind that much. Actually, I want Sasuke to be more around my team as well, if possible. His Dujutsu needs to be upped if we want to face our enemies equally. Again, another person that wouldn't mind. If you want to up Sharingan, though, why not include Kakashi?" "Oh, I thought that was rather obvious." She gave him a sardonic look. "He is one of the busiest Junin in Konoha. He is right. When in the vicinity, they know not how to behave. It affects my motor functions greatly. It is as if everywhere is somewhere else." How enlightening. As Shino, and Kiba made their way up to Naruto's hospital room, the Yamanaka heir gave the Aburame heir a brief, slightly irritated jaw drop. Shino was discussing the insects that encase his body. Akamaru doesn't even dare enter the room. Bastards got more chakra asleep than when Choji has all his pills and Anko. Sensei Go's curse seal combined. The Inuzuka began to shiver involuntarily. "I'm not as good at chakra sniffing as Akamaru, but even I can smell the chakra in the room. It doesn't make sense, though. The Kyuubi isn't sealed inside of him anymore. How can he still have that much chakra? How? I believe it is residual. Why, I've been told it has quite the animalistic presence." Both Kiba and Ino gazed at the Aburame. "Who, exactly, is telling you this?" "Who, quite obviously, my comrades. My destruction bugs." "Yeah, anyway, Akamaru says the same thing. That extraction wasn't a complete extraction, if you ask me. And Naruto doesn't seem worried in the slightest, so I think this is all part of a plan. But Naruto isn't that much of a thinker, so how?" The blonde girl who was passing between Kiba and Shino said, "You're rambling, Kiba. You trust Naruto, right?" "Very." Shino's two companions gave him blank looks for this. Following a brief pause, Kiba said, "I guess I agree with that, yeah." She sat up straight and took the lead, accelerating down the hallway. "Well, then don't worry. Did you guys know Naruto is in the bingo book? He has various entries. You should see the one Iwa has." Kiba waved her away from behind, saying, yeah. Guys become too famous if you ask me. Hell, even Sasuke can't hold a candle to him." Ino turned to the boy and gave him a bored look, and they both stopped. "Sweetie, Sasuke couldn't hold a candle to him back when he got his ass handed to him in the Chunin exams all those years ago. I think it's pretty much a given how powerful he's become now." Did you, Kiba stumbled over his own words, even making Shino frown. "But, you're a Sasuke fangirl." The dog, like Shinobi, ducked to avoid a fourth needle after swiftly dodging three extremely dangerous-looking ones. Behind them, strutting lazily, Akamaru barked, "That was a long time ago. We've all grown older and wiser. Or haven't you? I guess Akamaru is the more mature one out of the two of you, huh?" Kiba grinned and shrugged, "Hey, well maybe he is. Ain't nobody better than Akamaru." Shino joined the conversation and picked up the pace once more, saying, "But you are correct. The dead last made us face our own ill judgment. We were more the fool than he. Now, he is quite possibly, no, most likely, the most powerful shinobi in Konoha." This time, the statement completely startled Ino and Kiba. But Akamaru barked in agreement. Tsunade was relaxing in the chair next to Naruto's bed when Kiba, Ino, and Shino entered the hospital room. "I have one in snow, one in wave, and one in tea country." Naruto animatedly described the locations of his furnished apartments. But, I actually don't have one in Konoha. You can stay with me." Kiba and Naruto were astounded when Ino stepped forward and offered the suggestion. Only Shino appeared amused, and the Hokage was just Shino. He hardly managed to get out, but, I barely know you, Ino, as he managed to straighten his jaw. Ino took in the glaring looks and turned her gaze to the ground. I was just kidding. I still live with my parents. Haha. Don't worry about it, it has already been taken care of. Thanks, Hokage. Sama. What, did you think your team was sleeping on the streets? They were staying, just like you, in hotels all over Konoha until a few days ago. I've managed to secure an entire apartment building for you, your team and Jiraiya. That pervert never had a place to stay here either. It's about time you guys stayed here, permanently. The other blonde woman in the room said, yeah, you're always gone as soon as you get back. It's boring, we never see you anymore. The young man in bed said, well, we were never really that close. Remember, in fact, if you'd recall. Kiba was pointing his finger at the blonde and saying, oi. Leave things in the past in the past. You and I are going to be going on missions together soon. Naruto looked at the wild man in the room with somewhat of a cloud in his eyes. You have become a good tracker. Nin, huh? The best, was yelled in response. Then perhaps I already have something in mind. Kiba didn't like Naruto's expression for some reason. Tsunade didn't either. This place needs a woman's touch. No it doesn't, I don't see any women nearby. What? Sakura and Kakashi had accompanied Naruto to see his new apartment. His old apartment had been his since he, Jiraiya, and the rest of his team began their global travels. His team had already purchased a few items, including a bed, a fridge, a stove, a dinner table, a few closets, and other standard home furnishings. The blonde landed on one of the two couches in the living room and said, it looks fine to me already. He watched as Sakura and Kakashi settled in as well. So, how's life been for the two of you? I know I haven't been around much these last few months. Sakura smiled gently at him to begin. Well, I almost have enough high-rank missions accomplished to be assessed to become Junin, and my work in the hospital helps heaps with that. I'm on par with Shizune when it comes to Iryo, Ninjutsu and Tsunade. Sama told me I might be getting my own personal team when I become Junin. My small children are maturing so quickly, Kakashi muttered, leaning back on the sofa. You have a nice place for yourself here, Naruto. Thanking him with a nod, Naruto made a cage bunshin and gave the mental order to brew coffee. The clone immediately objected, saying, but boss, I don't know where everything is in this place. Figure it out, I know squat about this place either. His teacher said, you have an interesting relationship with your clones. I'd rather not talk to you about relationships, Kakashi, sensei. Hey yeah, why aren't you married anyway, Kakashi, sensei? I've been married twice already. Naruto spit out, what? And leapt off the couch. But Sakura just gave him a doubtful glance. My first wife was Ika Ika Tactics. My second. Kakashi was thrown an Ika Ika by Naruto in the face. Who? Hey, this one's new. Nay, Naruto, Sakura and Naruto were alone in the apartment after Kakashi had bid them good night. Naruto discovered that the apartment building was made up entirely of his team. He shared a third-floor apartment with Fu. On the fourth were Tamari and Tayuya, on the second were Kankuro and Dosu, and on the first were Gaara and Jiraiya. Everybody had a separate apartment. She seemed to be struggling to say what she wanted to say. Hey, this is pretty hard. What was it like? Going to the academy, and how did you live before the academy? He scratched his head and said, I don't know what you mean, Sakura. Academy, it's such a long time ago. You're suddenly bringing things up I don't even remember. I mean, being a Jinchuriki. I remember, maybe not how it was before the academy, but I do remember what it was like in the academy. She took a breath. All the teachers hated you, even all the kids hated you. Sakura was staring at her hands, and Naruto became silent in response. He saw that she was shaking a little. That's right, everybody hated me, I'd forgotten all about that. Liar. When Sakura suddenly gave a yelp, the blonde shifted back a bit on the couch. She was very serious and very emotional, and he noticed that right away. Liar, she said, averting her gaze once more and squinting. I remember you had to do cleaning duty every day, even though everyone knew it was always someone else's turn every other day. I remember what I thought back then. She tightened her fists. I thought, Naruto, Baka will do the cleaning after class anyway. And I'm pretty sure that's what everyone else thought too. Since Naruto sensed Sakura was trying to make a point, he chose not to answer. And I remember that you always got blamed for everything. Even when Kiba was yelling in class, you took the fall. When Ino and I were shouting at each other, you took the fall. When Choji was eating in class, you took the fall. Her hands clenched weakly. You always took the fall. The teachers really hated you. For an extremely brief moment, Naruto's eyes became very dark. However, it vanished before he could even notice it. I'm really sorry, Naruto. He attempted to dismiss Sakura with an uncertain laugh. It couldn't really be helped, you know. The older people told the younger people I was bad news. Naruto, I don't hate you. The outburst came on suddenly, surprising him. Hey, I know that. No, you don't. You've been hated all your life, so you probably think everyone still hates you. I've never hated you, you know. Even if I said those words. What words? Back when we had our very first team meeting, I told Kakashi, Sensei, the thing I dislike the most is Naruto. Oh, hey, you get used to it, you know. Everyone always. Sakura threw herself into Naruto's arms, sobbing, and his eyes widened. I'm sorry, Naruto. The blonde was at a loss for what to do about the wailing mess that surrounded him. You know, Sakura, I'm a lot stronger than you give me credit for. She shook her head, causing him to feel her shoulder. She whispered, you're the strongest person I know. If that's the case, then, he said softly. Somehow, the words didn't give him the confidence that usually accompanied them. You should know it ain't that easy to bring me down. As the next Hokage, a few people hating me is nothing, you know. His concern was unfounded, though, because Sakura answered. She mockingly exclaimed, Ha! You mean all of Konoha that hates you? He scowled as Sakura interrupted, saying, Wah! Not all of Konoha. The old man never hated me, Iruka. Sensei. Iruka. Sensei hated you too, you know. When he first began as teacher. I don't forget, remember. Naruto noticed Sakura was still hugging him absent-mindedly. In his face, her rosy hair looked a complete mess. But that changed. Who would I be if couldn't forgive a person who was misinformed? What kind of Hokage can't forgive the people he vowed to protect? She let go of him here and fixed him with an intense gaze. Naruto. Naruto became quite unsure at this point. She got up from Naruto's lap and bowed to him, saying, I believe in you. You're a great person and you'll become a great Hokage. You have my vote, future Hokage. Sama. With a laugh, Naruto gave her a quick pat on the head. There's no need for this, Sakura. Sakura grinned, tilting her head to look at the laid back Naruto. You know, you've become really cute, Naruto. At the abrupt remark, every thought left his mind. Quote, I think something's wrong with you, Sakura. It's time for you to go home. She chuckled at the grave response. No, I mean it. Naruto scratched the back of his head, embarrassed. Thanks, man, it's really weird hearing this from you. I used to have a big crush on you in the academy. She gave him a cheeky smile. Yeah, I remember. People change, huh? The saying caused his gaze to shift away. Yeah, people change. Well, I'd better get going. I have an early shift tomorrow. Let's catch up on old times soon, okay? I'm glad you're staying in Konoha. We've all really missed you. All right, he nodded, and the two of them headed toward the front door. I have a meeting with a few Anbu members tomorrow, maybe I'll swing by the hospital. I have to talk to Shizune anyway. She smiled at him and said, that would be nice. Maybe till tomorrow, then. Naruto gave one last shout as he watched her go. Sakura, you look pretty good yourself. Made him smile and give a wave in return. Not as cute as Samui, though, Naruto thought to himself as he closed the door. What is this place? A place where we can go all out when we train. Everything's dead, barren, it smells. A head shake combined with an eye roll. Well no shit, I just told you we go all out here, Tem. In case you're not realizing, that means this is where 3 Jinchuriki and a legendary sage fight all out. They disregarded him. Sasuke did not like not knowing everything, so he said, why did you bring me here? Wherever here is. Sasuke and Naruto had been teleported by Hiraishin. Naruto said, gesturing to a large crater in the distance, we're in Tea Country, just across the borders of Fire Country. You're pretty antsy, man. The two of them were perched on a cliff overlooking what appeared to be a wasteland. You see that one? I did that. I slammed a massive specialized Rasengan down on Gaara. I completely defeated him, I mean his sand clone. It was awesome. Whatever. Why am I here? The blonde bowed and stretched a little before saying, alright. You haven't changed at all. You can still piss me off in 5 seconds. Sit down. Despite the complaints, the Uchiha took Naruto's lead and sat across from him, saying, neither have you, dead, last. You still piss me off in only 1 second. He let out a sigh and suppressed the urge to give Sasuke a 60 or a Rasengan. Instead, he turned to what he wanted to talk about. The former Kyuubi Jinchuriki appeared agitated as he said, Sasuke, I want to give you a top secret mission. I found something in Konoha that was definitely not meant for my eyes. It will be really difficult for you. Drop this sorry act, hurry up and tell me what you want me to do. How good of a shinobi are you now, Sasuke? I'm a better shinobi than you will ever be. Naruto slapped his own forehead and drew lead ever so slowly, how predictable. I'm serious, asshole. I'm an elite Junin. I get the occasional S-rank mission. I am among the best of Konoha. Does that answer your question? What about your stealth? Can you be invisible? I can use my Sharingan to make people think they've never seen me. That's a definite plus. This will be very risky, Sasuke. I don't know if you can pull it off. Sasuke gave Naruto the cold look. He said angrily, I can pull off whatever you want. He laughed. Ew. Sasuke, shut up. Sasuke, predictably, did not respond and continued to be serious. Perhaps he caught a glimpse of a slight twitch around the eyebrow. Fine, I'll have your back, anyway. Remember how your Sharingan can see my Fuinbunshin. It's only Sasuke who can be both sarcastic and patronizing. No, I forgot. Well, there's a secret camp underneath Konoha. I've found several entrances, but it's part of Konoha's military force. I found out several things about the organization. His birthday wasn't coming up soon, right? This sounds like a prank. Dead. Last. Was Sakura preparing yet another dull, uninteresting surprise party? That was even worse than hell. I'm out. This has to do with Itachi, though. Sasuke growled at the mention of his brother right away. All trivial thoughts vanished from his mind. To find out if Naruto was serious, he had turned on his Sharingan. Elaborate. He gave Sasuke a look that made it clear to the Uchiha exactly what kind of history he was talking about when he said, it's history, important history. I can't reveal what I've discovered, but it's imperative that you know this, the blonde said, gathering chakra to conjure a scroll. In here is a map of the entire base. The red dots are guards, the blue dots are cameras, the short brown lines are hidden entrances that go down, the orange ones go up. Yellow short lines are entrances to areas on the same level. They are also hidden from view. I marked the area where you need to be green. After giving Naruto back the map after swiftly scanning it, Sasuke said, not bad. You've put some effort in. I've memorized it with my Sharingan. He looked at the Uchiha, impressed, and said, damn. That Sharingan is pretty cool. Dully, the Avenger repeated, pretty cool. What else you got? It's red. The Uchiha gave the blonde a sneer. I mean, what else you got for me in this? Why do you want me to do this? Infiltrate this base? Naruto smiled. Because it needs to happen. Your view on things is still limited. I've learned of something that will blast your view on things to nothing. But I can't tell you because you won't believe me unless you see it with your own eyes. The greenly marked area on the map is a big archive. I managed to get in by use of Fuinbunshin. It's highly guarded by 3 Junin. Leveled Anbu shinobi. I'm not sure if you see I can and I will. If what you're saying is true, they have information on the Uchiha massacre, right? Nervously, Naruto swallowed. Yes. And you think, judging by your reaction, I'm going to freak out? The prankster gave a single nod. Yeah. You have some sort of plan. You obviously know the way once you step foot inside, seeing as you have the entire map memorized in your head. But I'll have Fuinbunshin around you constantly. I will also give you some of my special kunai in case you get spotted or worse, captured. Obviously, if that happens. Naruto nodded. Yeah, we'll have to kill everyone down there. I don't want to, though. The existence of that secret military force, they're called Root, by the way, they might be necessary for Konoha. So I want you to promise me something. Sasuke turned off the Sharingan. This might turn very personal for me. Any promises I make now may turn forgotten when I'm in those archives. Oh, I definitely think so. That's why I don't want you to read the scrolls with information of that night there. As soon as you have the scrolls you need, my Fuin Bunshin will notify me and I will use Horaishin to take you away from there. Why don't you just take the scroll yourself and give it to me? With a serious look in his eyes, Naruto cocked his head somewhat dangerously. Where would the fun go if I did all the work? Sasuke concluded that Naruto's expression didn't appeal to him. Naruto purposefully left out the location of Sasuke's destination after his perilous mission. After this, the Uzumaki thought the Uchiha would want Danzo's head, and probably also the heads of Hiruzen, Homura, and Kaharu. He was unsure if this was the right course of action because he preferred Root's covert methods of keeping Konoha safe. However, he didn't truly believe in Danzo, and his true desires were that Root would be led by Sasuke. However, even though he claimed that his friend was predictable, he had no idea how Sasuke would react to this. He sincerely hoped that he wouldn't have to face Sasuke in the end. I apologize, Itachi. Now that I'm where I want to be, though, I'm going to pick up the pace. He stretched the boundaries of his body, sprinting and leaping across the training area that Team 7 frequently used. Since he had his Sharingan out, he shouldn't be having any problems with his opponents. There weren't many who could really grind him down or give him a hard time. He knew that he couldn't land for longer than a second after a kick landed in his midriff, and that his opponent would punish him for being so careless. Rather than coming to rest on his back, he launched himself back into the air using his right wrist, catching the 3 shuriken that were aimed for his chest. In the same instant that they were thrown back, his opponent pocketed them once more. Another kick, delivered very hard this time in the back of Kakashi's neck, made him snarl in agony. Naruto wasn't holding back when it came to his kicks or punches. He had hoped he still had some chance against his former student, so it wasn't entirely shocking. Unfortunately, though, Naruto was easily mopping the floor with him. He was certain that even if he used his Kamui, all he would be doing was transporting a clone to a different dimension. He discovered the Uchiha had grown extremely strong during their recent sparring match, but he still had a chance against the young, unyielding boy. That was a whole other story with Naruto. Having him as your opponent meant that there was never a moment to waste. His muscles were screaming for him to stop doing whatever it was he was doing, but to do so would be to concede the fight. And they had hardly spent 2 minutes together. His Junin uniform more closely resembled a big burned towel than anything else, and his body was a complete mess. A second later, he was being kicked in the ear and punched in the lips, which made him raise his arms in a desperate attempt to escape. I give up. Jiraiya sauntered slowly up the field and said, "Not bad, Kakashi. Most of us give up after a minute against his crazy relentless assault. You actually managed to dodge a few times." He could not resist falling to his knees. In fact, Naruto gave him a serious competition. It had tested his endurance, and he had failed miserably. "How strong are you?" With a broad smile on his face, the blonde stood behind the elite Junin. "I honestly don't know. My training is complete and it is up to me now to learn new things. I haven't had an honest death match with an Akatsuki member yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to rip all of them to shreds with this." Kakashi swallowed the soldier pill Jiraiya threw at him and agreed. He had to wonder aloud, what kind of fighting style have you created? "Well, you know I like to use clones, right?" A few wry looks were directed at him. There was Maida Guy, Kakashi, and Jiraiya in the clearing. The only person who wasn't giving him a pointed look but rather an excited one was Guy. "I made it so that when I attack, the attack will always land, no matter what happens. A destruction of a clone means a creation of a new one. I call it the Shitsuyu no Mei. It's awesome, because it doesn't even take a lot of chakra." The blonde sat down on the ground and took the scroll out. "Fuinjutsu is great once you're at the level where you can create things no one has created yet and you can pull it off. You haven't sparred with Sasuke yet, right?" He shook his head, sparing Kakashi a glance from his scroll. "Not yet." He touched his jaw several times and said, "He's going to be angry at how far away you are now. From the second our match started I felt like I was going to die every second afterwards. I especially regret not having revealed my Sharingan immediately. Your ability to transform your Fuin Bunshin into Kage Bunshin is truly a dangerous one. Actually, they don't transform. They simply perform the Kage Bunshin, but with half of their chakra remaining, they can't sustain their form, so they instantly fuse all the chakra into the shadow clone. This all happens really fast, so it does seem like they blend into one another. The truth is, the Fuin Bunshin carries very little chakra and so the Kage Bunshin they summon is also with little chakra. They are unable to land a decent, lethal hit and are more used for diversion or annoyance. The copy.nin muttered, well, it works. You have become a very annoying opponent using surprisingly basic techniques. I never imagined you would become like this when I first viewed your stats of your academy days. True, but now that I no longer have Kurama sealed within me, my chakra control has become far greater. Thanks to that, my basics have become very lethal. With a sigh, the gray-haired Junin got to his feet. I can't believe you reduced me to this state in 3 minutes. Guy's smile lit up the whole clearing, ho ho. 2 minutes and 14 seconds, Kakashi. Uzumaki Naruto. It is my turn now. Kakashi realized, blinking, that he wouldn't mind seeing Guy get pounded. He took a seat once more and anticipated it. The former Jinchuriki spread his arms and prepared to begin a new fight, saying, Guy, Sensei, I suggest you take off your weights then. Because I'm going to be moving fast. He held up a finger directly in front of his face. Not yet, young one. I wish to test the fountain of your youth. The blonde popped his neck to the right and muttered, somehow, that sounds disgusting. Kakashi and Jiraiya concurred, start. A tenth of a second later, Kakashi was overjoyed to see Guy had taken a kick to the mouth. Chiyuya threw her long red hair over her right shoulder and looked around suspiciously. In Konoha, everything just seemed too ideal. The two women in front of her seemed unaffected by it. She had grown strangely devoted to her captain over the last few years. She showed Orochimaru one kind of loyalty, but this was a different one. This was true allegiance. He gave her another chance, and then many more in a plethora of other areas. All that Orochimaru offered her was the choice to live. She thought their squad was great and didn't think it needed more people. Naruto, though, was determined not to let anyone else join. The blonde was debating between Hyuga Neji and Uchiha Sasuke right now. After all, they didn't have a Dujutsu user yet. She, Fu, and Temari were currently on their way to the Hokage's office. After meeting up with Hyuga Neji and Maida Guy, the group of 5 would embark on a mission that would take them outside of Konoha. Although it was a simple A-rank mission, Neji was unaware that Temari, Fu, and she would be evaluating him during it. Leading the way, the green-haired girl scratched the top of her head. I've fought Hyuga people before. They're not that impressive. I never had a hard time against any of them. That's because you're a Jinchuriki, Fu. Reopening your Tenketsu is child's play for you. Hyuga are actually troublesome opponents. Chiyuya concurs wholeheartedly with Temari. After all, those Hyuga had no trouble seeing through Genjutsu. A fresh voice spoke up from behind them, saying, from what I understand, they're all stuck up bastards with too much arrogance. Taiko, each of them exclaimed. Naruto nodded to his allies and said, except for Hinata. She was always nice. I'm joining you to the tower. Gaara and I are picking up a mission too. Ah, I want to join you. Temari and Chiyuya said nothing, but they agreed with Fu. They were not looking forward to going on a mission with a Junin known for being extremely active and a Hyuga. Nah, your mission will be fun, too, don't worry. I heard the chances of you running into Nuke.Nin is pretty high. It did appear more interesting with that prospect. Nah. Naruto. Taiko. The unexpected greeting from one of her elite Junin caused a blonde eyebrow to shoot up. The other blonde who had just walked into the 5th Hokage's office turned to face her. Naruto, why is he calling you captain? She growled. The former Jinchuriki scowled at Maida Guy and shrugged, saying, beats me. Maida Guy, who appeared to be in total defeat. Aha, despite his obvious pain, he managed to maintain his usual crazed smile. Kakashi and I had a bet. Whoever lasted longer in a spar against you wouldn't have to call you captain. But you both lasted equally right. 2 minutes in. Naruto was interrupted by Guy. 14 seconds, yes, but I consider a tie a loss. Naruto answered dryly, I'm pretty sure Kakashi isn't calling me captain, though. He turned to Tsunade and pointed at Guy. Is this guy fit for a mission like this, anyway? You're the reason he's getting beat up. The Hokage exclaimed. Still, he defeated Guy and Kakashi in just 2 minutes, what? Why am I no longer even surprised? The only reason it didn't fall on her desk when she lowered her head slightly was because she did so into her hands. Neji is leading the mission, I'll heal this idiot before they leave. From the moment they entered the office, Chiyuya, Fu, and Temari had remained silent behind Naruto. However, they were forced to make room when the door opened to allow Gaara to enter. It's crowded, the redhead said, taking stock of the space. Neji nodded, standing behind Jinchuriki, the redhead. The blonde Hokage got down to business as everyone became serious, saying, "It seems we're complete." The tone of the room became more somber as soon as Fu, Tamari, Neji, Tayuya, and Guy left the office. After confirming that the sound barrier he had set up moments earlier was still firmly in place, the blonde Junin began, "He is detained and without chakra. I can do this for as long as I want, but he is a friend of mine. I have a plan to deal with this troublesome mess, though." "You want to save him?" Naruto nodded, looking at Gaara before confirming. "I want him and Neji in my teams of Akatsuki hunters. Sasuke is also a powerful shinobi of Konoha, he is valuable." Taking a seat in one of the two chairs in front of the Hokage's desk, the Shukaku Jinchuriki said, "What is your plan, Taiko?" "This is a delicate situation. If what you say is true, Sasuke wants to destroy Konoha more than protect it." Naruto immediately replied, "I will kill all that threatens Konoha. But, I don't want to kill Sasuke, unless I really have to. Right now, my plan is to kill Hoshigaki Kisame and the few weird plant clones surrounding him. Then we capture Itachi and take him to Sasuke. If the conversation those two have doesn't pan out the way we want it, then I will go to plan B. I take it that plan B involves eliminating both Uchiha." The Hokage scowled at Naruto. "You want to take out an S-rank missing nin and take another captive?" This is where the blonde man smiled. "I have intel on Kisame. The first thing we do is separate him and his sword. The rest will be child's play." "What about Itachi, Jiraiya, Gaara, Kakashi, Kiba, Shino and me? We should be able to handle Itachi and Kisame. Then the only question that remains is, how will you find those two?" Konoha Junin, the blonde, smirked at his Hokage. "I've been in contact with Itachi, actually." "What do you mean?" inquired Tsunade. Gaara was sulking over Naruto in the interim. "So he intends to inform her that Itachi is an ally. I've learned everything about this entire mess a long time ago, Hokage-sama. About the Uchiha massacre and Itachi's innocence. It was Itachi who told us so many years ago. During that first Tsukiyomi." Tsunade became enthralled with the suggestion. "You knew about it when you were 14. Each of them gave a head nod. "We've been in touch with Itachi ever since. He's going to turn on Kisame and Akatsuki and side with us. We are Akatsuki hunters and I wanted a Hyuga and a Uchiha in our organization. I partly lied because we already had a Uchiha. Hyuga Neji will most likely join us too. So Kisame is completely loyal to Akatsuki. Itachi can deal with him by himself, but I'm sure the other Akatsuki members will be quick to respond. With us around, it'll be easier." She sighed and shook her head, saying, "What a sneaky ambush. Are you sure you want Kakashi with you?" "Yes, his Kamui could be useful after all," the blonde said, cocking his head. "Also, killing both Sasuke and Itachi was never really a plan. If it was, it would be the last plan. Plan B is bringing in Hyuga Hiyashi and putting a caged bird seal on Sasuke." Tsunade's gaze expanded. Sitting on the roof of a small cabin, Kiba hissed silently, "I don't know the smell of shark. I've never eaten shark or come across one. They were all dressed more formally than usual because they were in snow country. I can't believe he brought me to a place this cold. You shouldn't complain." "Why?" "Because complaining will make it seem as if time goes slower. Assuming you want to return to Konoha as fast as you can, I'd think you wouldn't want time to go slow." Aburame Shino's brows became furrowed. "Although, it seems my bugs share your sentiment. You never learned how to heat your body with chakra." Kiba and Shino both gave the third person a disbelieving look. Gaara frowned slightly, glancing at the two beside him before turning his head away in contemplation. "It appears I owe you an apology." "Yeah, you do," Kiba shot back with anger. Shino agreed silently but quite angrily. "Why didn't you tell us this when we first got here? Yesterday, for example?" The redhead began. "No, I mean, forgive me. It seems only a Jinchuriki can apply this to oneself." Kiba hesitated in his response, knowing that Gaara would absolutely destroy him if he attempted to strangle her. Meanwhile, Shino had turned away. His enraged twitches had to be heard by his bugs. Standing between Gaara and Kiba was a fourth individual. "They're almost here. I still don't smell anything, Naruto." For the umpteenth time, Gaara warned, "Uzumaki. Taiko. You address him as Uzumaki. Taiko." Kiba growled, "Nah. Never." In response to Kiba's previous statement, Naruto expressed indifference in either case. "They are S-rank nuke.nin, Kiba. I'm pretty sure they can erase their entire presence. When they do arrive, I want you two inside, with Sasuke." He was referring to Kiba and Shino. Jiraiya, Gaara and me will handle them. Kakashi will act as our back. Up should unexpected visitors arrive. Jiraiya, Gaara, Kakashi, and an additional Naruto materialized on the ground in front of the cabin. They signaled to them that they were ready to go by signing upward. As Gaara used sand to levitate downward, Kiba asked Naruto, "So you're a Kage Bunshin?" Naruto gave the Inuzuka a smile. Kiba pondered, maybe, as to why Kage Bunshin shared the original scent. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki and the Shukaku Jinchuriki. I've heard they've grown quite strong. I'm sure they have. Jinchuriki tend to grow stronger as they grow older. A brief moment of silence. Quite like any other person. I've also heard Nagato had a hard time against that Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Doesn't that make this questionable, Itachi-san? Itachi said, it does. Especially since it seems Jiraiya Sama is with them. Kisame shot to his feet. Confusion engulfed the shark. Like man, why did Nagato send us to fight two Jinchuriki and Jiraiya? I mean, even Jiraiya alone could give both of us a hard time. It was what Nagato ordered us to do. Although he nodded, Kisame wasn't entirely sure. Naturally, Itachi had tricked Samahata and Kisame into thinking Nagato had given the order by using genjutsu on them. Though it wasn't simple, his reputation as a genjutsu master wasn't earned overnight. This kind of small, subtle genjutsu was particularly challenging. Kisame took Samahata and stabbed it in front of him in the ground, saying, "Let me prepare. I will fuse with Samahata now before they see a." Kisame watched in dismay as Itachi kicked Samahata out of his grasp. Itachi disintegrated into crows, and for a fraction of a second, he was completely stunned before launching a swift attack. All around him came Itachi's voice, saying, "You're on your own, Kisame." The missing Nin looked around rapidly, but he could not find his sword. Though he was certain it struck the tree to his left, nevertheless. Forget it. Uzumaki Naruto, Sabaku no Gaara, and the Toad Sage Jiraiya were in front of him. Naruto had a scroll in his hands that was blazing hot. That sword of yours is a real pain in the ass to seal. It keeps on absorbing the chakra out of the seals, making the scroll useless. Therefore, I am currently unable to join this fight to keep the sword sealed. A Kage Bunshin wouldn't suffice. Jiraiya and Gaara nodded, realizing that it was their responsibility to defeat Kisame. Sneaky Itachi. I always knew something like this would happen. I always figured it would be me doing the front stabbing. Kisame laughed. Even though he never really engaged in combat without Samahata, he was still a formidable opponent in the absence of it. Indeed. As he kicked behind him, Kisame growled, but nothing was left. Once more, Itachi swiftly stabbed him in the shoulder with a kunai from behind before vanishing and resurfacing in front of Jiraiya and Gaara. You will fall here. Hoshigaki Kisame. I never truly stopped being a Konoha. Nin. 4 Zetsu materialized in Kisami's immediate vicinity, prepared to defend him. One told Kisame, Obito and Nagato are being notified. But they can easily overpower all of us. We should stall. In the same instant, Gaara's sand pulled the 4 Zetsu underground, crushing them. Leave those white monsters to me. There are more around, but they are swimming in my sand. How very foolish of them. While Itachi disappeared from view, prepared to attack Kisame at any moment when he would let his guard down, Jiraiya rushed towards him. But before Jiraiya could get to Kisame, Nagato materialized in front of him, halting his progress. Hello, Jiraiya. Sensei. It appeared that Obito had transported Nagato using Kamui. Naruto twitched, staring at Nagato with a bewildered expression on his face. Someone just threw the kunai I gave Nagato. But he's right here. Kisame looked relieved as he saw Obito appear next to him. And so is Obito. Kakashi suddenly materialized behind Naruto, his steely eyes fixed on him. What ought I to do? Was he expected to retreat from combat? As Kakashi walked past him and faced his old friend Obito, he was genuinely unaware of anything. Obito. Kakashi. Jiraiya was up against Uzumaki Nagato, a former pupil. Kakashi was up against his old teammate, Uchiha Obito. Though he was occupied subduing Zetsu, Gaara knew he had to confront Kisame at this point. Even with Itachi nearby as a backup, things still didn't seem to be going well. Naruto was occupied with trying to read the faces of the Akatsuki members and maintaining his chakra connected to the scroll that kept Samahata sealed. That was undoubtedly the kunai he gave to Nagato, the one he sensed had been thrown into Fire Country. Who was the thrower? Would the Akatsuki want that, or could he leave this place to find out who did it? He was unable to determine if the Akatsuki members anticipated his departure from the battleground. This is so confusing. Damn it. All he could think of was the cage bunchen he had left behind at the cabin. Although his allies saw, they assumed he needed to hide the Samahata somewhere. Glaring at each other, Nagato and Jiraiya were about 2 meters apart. You weren't there the last time, sensei. I wonder if you are as strong as your student has become. If not, you stand little chance. I'm stronger than the runt and stronger than you. Nagato grinned. My eyes can detect lies quite well, sensei. You've grown old and slow. You will fall today. Turning to face the copycat ninja a few meters ahead of him, Obito said to Kisame, so Itachi betrayed us. I didn't expect him to do this, but I can't say I'm surprised. He said, trying to give Kakashi the impression that he didn't really care. Such joy to face my former teammate. Without emotion. I don't see you as anything anymore, so don't bother talking. Are you ready to go, Kisame? By go. What did he mean? Should you pick a fight or run away? Kisame was unable to determine who would prevail in the end today. That made him an S-ranker, even without his sword. As soon as Naruto arrived at the cabin, he looked closely at Shino and Kiba and made a decision. Shino, keep maintaining the seal etched on top of this scroll. The way to do it is pour chakra into it, not too much and definitely, not too little. Keep the same amount continuously. Use your bugs to see how much I'm using. Shino nodded his head, knowing what needed to be done, and immediately let his bugs see what Naruto was doing. How long can you do this? According to my buys, they believe in estimate. How long, Shino? 30 minutes. The chakra you are releasing is quite an enormo. Shino looked at Kiba as he assumed control of Naruto's actions on the scroll, saying, take over, I'll try to be as quick about all of this. He then produced 5 shadow clones and gazed at the lone clone he had left behind, saying, guard Shino. He cannot let up, 2 of you stand guard over Sasuke inside. The remaining 3, go and help Gaara and the others. I'll be right back, he exclaimed, calling upon his dependable sword, Ego Kaiki, even though he wasn't entirely sure about it. Then he vanished in an instant. While the other 2 went inside the cabin, his 3-cage bunchen hurried to the battlefield. Kiba shuddered slightly from the impact of Naruto's authoritative tone. Kiba approached Shino and said, wow, Shino. Do not approach. Kiba saw at that moment that Shino was totally focused on the assignment Naruto had given him. Kiba could tell from what little he could see on Shino's face that this was going to be a difficult task. It didn't work. Then he materialized in front of her, a large sword poised to slay her, as she was making her way to the spot where she had thrown the kunai and getting ready to try again. Uzumaki-san. I don't want to fight. She didn't have an Akatsuki cloak on, but Naruto knew who she was right away. You are Akatsuki. You were there, when Nagato and I fought each other. Yes, I was there. My name is Conan. He narrowed his eyes and prepared to chop this woman to pieces at the first sign. You're the woman who can control paper? Don't think I don't know how to deal with that. Dressed in an AIM Junin uniform, Conan said, I see. You have information about us. She extended her arms and gave Naruto the calmest look she could manage. I have no weapons, no chakra active. I don't want to fight, I have left Akatsuki. He didn't have time to deal with this. Why should I believe you? The others were engaged in combat. The Akatsuki has changed, its goals are different. It was created with peace in mind, but all it creates is violence. After making his sword disappear, Naruto reached into a pocket and took out 2 pieces of paper. Form the bird seal. Conan blinked at the strange order, but followed it right away. As he called forth the left and right shadow clones, the blonde uttered the words, I don't trust you at all. But my cage bunchen are going to give you this slip of paper and you are going to pour your chakra into it, after you drop a drop of blood onto it. What does it do? He wasn't in the mood to screw around when she got cut off. As his cage bunchen approached her, he explained, it's a 2-way scroll. We will be connected through blood and I will be able to see, feel, and tell if you are lying. Tell me everything you just said again as soon as I activate the scroll and you activate yours. Creative, Conan said, cutting herself with her own skin because she could cut through paper with ease while still creating the bird seal. She saw that Naruto had a blood drop on his slip and was holding the ram seal. Naruto muttered, Fuin. Conan's piece of paper instantly disappeared. Naruto gave Conan a less severe glare than before. He saw absolutely no hesitation on her part. She followed instructions to the letter. Still, it was insufficient. Talk. We don't have much time. As Naruto began speaking, Conan couldn't help but cast glances at the shimmering piece of paper that was still in her hands. He is a troublesome opponent. Now that they were standing side by side, Obito looked at Nagato. Nagato paused to consider whether Kakashi was actually an S-ranked shinobi at this point. My opponents are Uchiha Itachi and Hitaki Kakashi. 2 S-ranked nin. Jiraiya is only 1. I believe the right to complain lies with me a bit more, Nagato. With Kisame, Gaara was finding it rather easy. He was all over the place right now, in his sand shower version, quite untouchable. However, even without Samahata, Kisame recovered quickly. Kaden, Karyu Enden. With a wave of his hand, Nagato neutralized Jiraiya's attack by absorbing its chakra. Obito was still targeted by part of it, but he simply allowed it to pass through him. When he did, Itachi used that moment to cast a genjutsu on him, so he had to move quickly. And Kakashi entered suddenly with a Chidori after vanishing from nowhere with the genjutsu. In just 2 seconds, all of this happened. Obito was forced to retreat since he had no time to activate Kamui, but Itachi materialized above him, setting 100 kunai on fire and causing it to rain. How annoying, Obito thought to himself as he sprinted sideways while Kakashi continued to follow. He allowed Kakashi to phase through him at the 5th second, and for a split second, he considered sending the man to another dimension using his other eye. Instead, he kicked the man with gray hair to the ground. Itachi hurled wisps of fire at him, which he had to quickly avoid. I'll let Kakashi go with my Kamui so he can learn more about the method. And Itachi already knows how my Kamui functions. He must pass away here. Shinra Tensai. Rolling his eyes, Obito saw Nagato launch 2 enormous toads into the air. As Kisame was being kicked in the ass by the Shukaku boy, he felt some shadow clones sneak up on him. The inability of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's shadow clones to use Hiraishin is strange. However, I think that's a good thing. With a shinobi like Gaara around, the Zetsu Subterranean was worthless garbage. The moment the shadow clones of Naruto appeared on the battlefield, they made straight for Nagato. Obito knew Itachi had long since planned this out, for some reason. Then he made up his mind, we should retreat. I agree. He wasn't shocked to hear Kisame make that statement. Without his sword, the shark like man was merely an A-rank shinobi. Although Nagato would most likely stay here for a while, the real Naruto would most likely return soon as well. He was surprised to find Kakashi ready to confront Itachi while they were playing hide and seek. Obito growled. Itachi, have you been snooping on us all along? Shino was already gasping when Naruto used Hiraishin to return to the cabin while Konan was at his side. Naruto. Thank God. Shino's having trouble. Shino submitted to Naruto right away, lowering himself to his knees at the first opportunity. I thought you said 30 minutes. It hasn't even been 15. It got harder. Huffing, Naruto repeated the seal reinforcement several times, but he understood. This sword, I think it can sense his master being in danger. Konan came up to Naruto and said, that's true. Samahata and Kisame are fused more often than not. I can be of assistance here. Sealing sentient items requires a constant source of chakra. I will detain the sword with my paper techniques. Wouldn't it just drain the chakra out of your technique? That's true. But I believe I can hold on long enough for you to help your comrades. With a sudden smile, Naruto took a soldier pill in his free hand. He laughed to himself, I can't believe I'm using a soldier pill. He gave a single whistle to alert the 2 shadow clones inside the cabin that they were needed. I'll perform Shishi engine around the sword as soon as it's released from the scroll. He then gave the orders to the Cage Bunshin who emerged from the house to each summon 1 additional shadow clone and execute the Shishi engine. Kiba, give Shino a soldier pill and then go guard Sasuke with him. Konan told him, it is quite fast, you'll have to be quick. No, you need to move quickly, Konan. The fair-haired woman grinned at her. The moment that thing shoots out of the scroll, is the moment you wrap your paper around it and immobilize it. And then my clones will capture it. They can hold up the Shishi engine for a long time. Konan furrowed his brow. I know that the Shishi engine takes a lot of chakra to perform. The blonde shot back, saying, I'm a Jinchuriki, and I just took a freaking soldier pill. That being said, he was no longer a true Jinchuriki. Yes, you did. But you're not the one who created the shadow clones, are you? These hold a certain percentage of the chakra from you before you took the soldier pill. At that, Naruto's mouth dropped open, damn it. He quickly called forth the new Cage Bunshin, then set Samahata free so Konan could attack it. In turn, the newly formed Cage Bunshin executed the Shishi engine swiftly. Everything needed to be completed fast, then he gave Jiraiya a flash. And to confront Nagato's Banshu Tenin, it didn't matter in the end that he pulled the wrong person towards him. Nagato's eyes widened momentarily. He was going to stab Naruto with one of his black rods, but as he was drawn toward the other Uzumaki, Naruto smiled and called forth Ego Kaiki. With a growl, Nagato rolled aside. That sword experience he had was not cool. As he picked himself up, he exclaimed, "So we are facing each other again. Not just me, now." Jiraiya stood by Naruto's side as he snapped his neck. Naruto had to use caution in this battle because he was aware that he had already used a lot of chakra. Kisame was right where Gaara wanted him to be, and Obito was growing tired of constantly avoiding attacks from Itachi, Kakashi, and sometimes even Gaara and Jiraiya. Nagato appeared next to Kisame using Shunshin and yelled, "Shinra Tensai," to drive away all the sand particles that were attacking Kisame. Oh no, it's going to take some time for Gaara to regain his physical form. He will also suffer harm. In that state, he's actually very vulnerable, Naruto growled and balled his fists. Standing next to the pair, Obito gave Naruto's squad a severe glare. Now that he was with Jiraiya and Naruto, Kakashi was eager to try again. Obito was someone he didn't want to face, but they had already assured him he would be here. Itachi, the cunning and stealthy ninja, was most likely still around for all of them. Obito said, "It appears you have us exactly where you wanted us." Gaara had temporarily disappeared, and Zetsu had begun to emerge from the earth. After a moment, he lifted his head slightly and spoke in an unspecific manner, saying, "We will come for you later. You too, will get what you deserve, Itachi-kun. The Akatsuki doesn't appreciate betrayal." The Uchiha prodigy suddenly materialized next to Naruto, saying, "I see. I am sure Orochimaru would agree." With a snarl, Obito ignored Itachi's typical sarcasm and fixed his gaze on Naruto. "Don't get cocky, Kyuubi. You will be surprised at how well our cards still are." Obito then teleported each of them away. Kakashi looked long and hard at the place where they vanished. Obito. Itachi turned to face the others after confirming that they were truly enemies no more. "It has been a while, Kakashi. Senpai." After blinking in response to the greeting, Kakashi shook Itachi's hand. "It has. I've heard you had quite the high-ranked mission." Nearing the cabin, the Uchiha remarked, "Yes. It took quite some time, too. I am just now finishing things up." Alongside a gaunt looking Gaara were Naruto and Jiraiya. "I told you shouldn't have used that jutsu. Nagato was there, man," was a comment Naruto made while Gaara was preoccupied. Naruto became friendly with him as soon as he approached. "We have your little brother detained. He plans to burn Konoha to the ground." The Nuke.Nin did not appear to be shocked. He learned of the truth, then? He nodded to Itachi. "I apologize for rushing things, Itachi, but I felt it necessary." With a sigh of apparent relief, the Uchiha said, "Haste might hurt, Naruto-kun." He looked seriously at Naruto and said, "But I must admit, it feels good to have left Akatsuki ahead of schedule. Your plans?" "Allow him some vengeance. I'll give him Danzo if he in return leads Root in the old man's stead." If Naruto hadn't known any better, he would have said that Itachi appeared kind of impressed. It is peculiar how similar our minds work, Naruto-kun. Perhaps the reason stems from us both looking out for Konoha. There is but one slight difference between our plans. While we were tending to our own wounds, Jiraiya and Kakashi were listening in on the conversation. After all, the Hokage had to be left out of this as well. Gaara appeared uninterested, but she was actually quite intrigued. "It will be me who will lead Root within Konoha's darkness. I won't be readily accepted into Konoha by the populace. What better way to circumvent the unnecessary ill attention?" Not quite satisfied, Naruto cast a serious glance at the elder Uchiha. "What of Sasuke, then?" "I'll talk with my little brother. A genuine Tsukiyomi should do the trick for what little time we have left. My little brother deserves to know the truth, the genuine one." Kakashi approached the two and said, "There's another problem, Itachi-kun. How come you haven't turned blind yet? Surely having used Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi like you have, it's sure to leave damage." "I grasped my parents' eyes." He responded stiffly. He shook his head once, saying, "Familial bonds develop in ways even I didn't know of. Although I wish none will ever find out about the backlash." The instant they became aware of one another, they both came to a mutual understanding. So all this time he was Konoha's spy? When Konan noticed Itachi. When Itachi saw Konan, he thought, so that's the path she chose to walk. Konan gestured toward the sword inside the purple barrier and said, "He has simmered down quite a bit." Naruto was informed. "I think it's safe to assume Kisame is not in the near vicinity?" Konan. "Chan." The woman with blue hair blinked as Jiraiya began to sprint in her direction. J. Jiraiya, sensei? Naruto turned to Itachi as Jiraiya hopped towards the woman with purple hair. We have ways of dealing with that bothersome sword, but for safety reasons, could you use Amaterasu to destroy it? The older man gave the sword a single nod, moved forward, and bowed once. Itachi opened his right eye after about a minute. And with that, black flames sucked the sword down to the underworld, saying, "Samahada, I apologize." He was a little surprised to feel a hand on his shoulder. It had been a long time since he'd felt anything like that. "Are you ready to see your little brother?" Itachi fully charged his Sharingan, steeling himself to move toward the cabin that housed his younger brother, albeit in captivity. "Yes, deactivate your Fuin seals when I enter and leave us be until we come out." With a nod, Naruto banished the cage Bunshin from the house. Kiba and Shino trailed quickly behind, making way for Itachi to enter the house. They felt completely out of their element, especially after seeing the older Uchiha. When this goes wrong, Jiraiya's unasked question was answered by Naruto. After that, they would be faced with another altercation. Sasuke. He was startled out of his sleep by the sound of that voice. Itachi. "We have to talk, Sasuke." Itachi set Tsukiyomi on when Sasuke actually looked his brother in the eye. His surroundings abruptly shifted as they found themselves witnesses to a significant gathering that had taken place in the Hokage Tower years earlier. Sasuke identified the two advisors and the third Hokage. Not only did he recognize Shimura Danzo, but he also saw a younger version of his older brother kneeling down in front of them. Beside him, the real Itachi remarked, "I am showing you why I did what I did, Sasuke. I assure you, you will understand. No more lies, you will now see the naked truth." Sasuke observed the third argue with his advisors and Danzo's decision to utterly destroy the Uchiha in order to prevent their coup. He witnessed the third's attempts to thwart it and Itachi's forced descent onto the one course where his own convictions held firm. "Our family, Sasuke, wanted to destroy Konoha, rebuild it and led it. Our family was a proud, ignorant clan. They believed in themselves more than in the village. They would go as far to destroy any other clan but their own. Konoha was built with Union of Clans as its stronghold. There is no Union of Clans in a massacre where only one remains. We would have been so different, you would have been raised so different." Itachi stopped to watch the events unfold. It would have all been in vain. Had the coup d'état been successful, it would have been a Pyrrhic victory. All Konoha would be as ashes on the ground, with his conclusion that Union of Clan is an impossibility. There simply would be no clan left. No Senju, no Uchiha, nothing. Sasuke observed Uchiha Shisui commit suicide and offer himself as a sacrifice in support of those same beliefs. He saw how Danzo obtained the Sharingan eyes. He observed Itachi murdering his own parents and how they accepted his choices. He witnessed as numerous other Uchiha wearing masks were also killed. Here, Itachi clarified, "The man in the mask is Uchiha Obito, your sensei's former teammate. He is the leader of Akatsuki, an organization which is after your former teammate Uzumaki Naruto. All for the Biju sealed inside of him." However, Sasuke remained silent. He saw Itachi join Akatsuki and fight for them for years. He witnessed the meeting and covert alliance that Itachi and Naruto formed, even with Konoha. "I did what was necessary not only for Konoha, but for our continuation. Had I not, there would be no hope left." Itachi, with a sword aimed at his parents, a younger Itachi stood before them, saying, "I'm sorry, Sasuke. I didn't want to kill them. I see myself doing this every time I dare to dream." He lowered his head slightly as he witnessed Sasuke's demise in the real world once more. He carried the right eye of his father and the left eye of his mother. It wouldn't be long before Sasuke received the other two. Pull yourself together." He stammered more blood and managed to say, I need time. He was similar to my heart, and he's completely gone now. I didn't know Samahada meant that much to you. Is it not only a tool?" With a wild, abrupt dash, he phased through it and clicked his tongue in disappointment. Kisame had broken through half of a wall and through Obito. Ignoring Kisame, Obito turned to face the other person in the Akatsuki hideout. The remaining members of Akatsuki were all away on their missions. Itachi betrayed us and Kisame will be a mess for quite a while. Underground, Zetsu declined to participate in the discussion because he was a little miffed by Nagato's remark. How annoying, it seems this was planned for quite some time. They were prepared, we were not. With his arms folded, the red-haired Nagato peered at Kisami's mess. Hoshigaki is also useless without his trump card, we might as well kill him. There was one Uchiha in the room who thought, he might still turn useful. All is not lost, Nagato. You are not the only Uzumaki in the Akatsuki anymore. Yuna is quite the formidable shinobi. Though Nagato had to agree, at least in part, he wasn't one to shower praise on others. I suppose her summons are promising, yes. Without it, she's as useless as the sniveling shark over there. Don't rule out an Uzumaki too quickly. You are, after all, from the same clan. Her Fuinjutsu skills brought her summons to begin with. She deserves the power. Just like you and the Rinnegan. The wielder of Rinnegan snorted. I doubt she can hold her own against Uzumaki Naruto. I'll believe in her worth when she survives against a hurricane like that. We'll have to inform her before we do this. If what you say is true, then a battle with him will be quite noticeable. They were sitting at a table in the living room, him and Itachi. Kakashi and Gaara were keeping watch while Konan, Kiba, and Shino rested. In the same room as Naruto and Itachi, Jiraiya was occupied with a new Icha Icha volume while Sasuke remained unconscious. Naruto was asked by everyone if he really trusted Konan, but the blonde clarified that he had used his truth blood scroll to test her. For Gaara and Jiraiya, who'd been there before, that seemed sufficient, but the others appeared pretty doubtful. It made no difference. As soon as Konan set foot in Konoha, she would be questioned once more. The blonde Junin complained to himself, it's stupid of me that I don't remember how many. But one of his eyes is a Sharingan and he carries at least 6 more in his arm. Yes, and he also has Senju Hashirama's DNA implanted into himself. A fusion of such can mean a few things, according to the Uchiha history records I've read. Such as Izanagi, Izanami or a Rinnegan manifestation. All of them are quite worrisome. Itachi clarified. We'll have to ambush him. Killing him would be significantly easier if he doesn't have time to activate the Sharingan sequence needed for Izanagi or Izanami. Sharingan sequence? Not necessarily a sequence. To active a Dujutsu technique, a constant amount of chakra needs to flow in 1 or 2 Sharingan eyes for a certain amount of time. For example, I need to pour a constant flow of chakra into my right eye to be able to perform Amaterasu. And it is quite a big amount. For Uchiha who relies on Dujutsu, an ambush is the greatest worry. An Uchiha who relies on Dujutsu, don't they all? With a nod in response, Naruto received an explanation. Not all Uchiha specialize in Tsukiyomi, Amaterasu, Susanoo, Izanagi, Izanami or Kamui. Some use it just for copying or predicting. I hold a few secret Dujutsu of my own, having taken my parents' eyes. No other Uchiha has ever gained these techniques as it seems no other Uchiha has ever taken the eyes of their elders. That you have the ability to see into the future? Naruto conjectured. Yes, the Shoraizu. I hold 3 other Dujutsu techniques, Kaisushin, Yodomi and Limbo. Itachi was beaming. When we're in Konoha, I'll tell you the power of these 3. Can you take Danzo? I am a true Uchiha, he is but an imposter. If Sasuke deserves that Junin rank, then he will suffice as my back up. However, I am sure the Hokage won't allow just us to do this, if she even allows this entire operation of ours. I will be there, definitely, but we won't be doing things in Konoha. Jiraiya decided to take part in the discussion. You're going to use Hiraishin to teleport that old geezer away, huh? Yes. A double ambush. If Tsunade Sama allows it, we will take Danzo out far away from Konoha. And if what you say is true, Itachi, then I agree that Sasuke should land the killing blow. Yes, his mind is in turmoil. I cannot predict his line of thoughts or actions. If he kills, no, after he kills Danzo, I can see whether he has some form of closure. As of now, I still don't know whether he is still willing to fight for and protect Konoha.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.